Okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
And today we are discussing SuperWonder and BatCat. Yes, and we will be also talking about Batman Talia, because if there's... Because Talia is a character that DC, mostly Grant Morrison, has severely abused and character assassinated up the yin yang. So yes, we will be talking about that, because I feel like that really has to be discussed and studied.
Yes.
In fact, there should be a college course on how to completely destroy a character. But so why don't you start us off talking about? Hang on, I'm trying to get my screens to work, because for some reason this is giving me issues yet again. My gosh, technology! Apple, get your stuff together.
Technology does give us some issues. It's supposed to be easier in advance, but no, you will have issues.
Yes, set up show. Okay. But anyway, so moving on. So the reason why we picked BatCat is because, for one thing, James Gunn cooked. Leave a like. Yeah, definitely leave a like on the stream. So one of the things that I particularly like about this is, so we decided to talk about BatCat because that's one of the other couples that actually, Brit kind of summarized this perfectly last week. BatCat is basically the Night SuperWonder, essentially.
Right. Because they are two sides of the same coin. You know, Bruce, he's the, you would say, upper class of Gotham, and Selina is the lower class in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Or she understands the streets of Gotham, but their main goal is to protect Gotham. You know, that is what brings them together. So in combination of that, with Superman and Wonder Woman, you have both of them being two sides of the same coin as outsiders. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Diana, she's the immigrant who loves her culture, who celebrates it, and she's more open to it. And then you have Clark, who's the refugee, who more so hides it, and he has to learn to celebrate it and be more open. While in turn, Diana more so understands that of a private life, you know, and you take that. It's not about humanity or whatever. It's not about taking away the secret identity. It's more so you think of it as like a celebrity wanting to get away from the paparazzi. So you go incognito for some time.
And have a regular life, essentially.
Right.
By the way, Latvian Dragon, we actually did an entire episode on this, but I will say Frank Miller had a pretty decent SuperWonder when he wasn't making them create earthquakes. And what's up, Daniel? What's up, Cameron? Yeah, that was one of the things, because he kind of created that whole when they make love, earthquakes start.
Yeah, Frank Miller's stories are already over the top. So honestly, you don't really take that serious. You know, it's fun because it's fiction, but the whole entire premise of Dark Knight Returns universe is over the top. You know, you have an all-star Batman and Robin is kind of within that universe too. So, you know, with him being just comedically, I wouldn't say his Batman was evil, but he was just he was more of an anti-hero, I would say.
Little bit.
And just the way he wrote him, you know, the dialogue and everything, and being a sort of an abusive mentor to Robin, Black Canary, his whole thing with her.
We keep our masks on. It's better that way.
You know, just things like that is so over the top that you can't really take serious, or even painting himself gold.
Well, that was because at the time it was like Green Lantern was weak to the color yellow, or Batman thought he was still weak. But there you go. I just answered a question and asked concern about a DC rom com, and from every choice there was not a SuperWonder, so I added it. There you go. Appreciate that. So the way we normally do these is we talk about Superman and Wonder Woman first, and then go into the couples. So we're going to start with this. So the number one thing for Superman and Wonder Woman, number one on our list is there is a conflict of ideas, because people, when they look at Super Wonder, they think it's like the two most perfect people who agree with each other all the time, and where that's a very superficial way to look at it, because even in the New 52, yes, it was a cringe ass line, but when they're having that discussion in Trinity War, and Wonder Woman is like, when I deal with my villains, I deal with them. She's basically talking about she kills her villains, which she doesn't, but that's besides the point.
Right.
That right there is showing that there's like a different set of ideals with Superman. Yes, they're similar in certain ways, but the thing about it is that Wonder Woman is, I think, of the two, most likely to kill. I'm using killing as the most extreme example, but it's like one of the most obvious ones. Because remember, yes, Wonder Woman's an ambassador for peace. She's also a warrior.
But I would say that Clark would too. If it's kind of like, you have to put these characters in a situation. You can't sugarcoat certain things with them. I mean, you can have him as he can't be too perfect. He has to overcome conflicts and stuff to be the inspiration that he's put on the pedestal to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing I would say Diana does a little bit more. And honestly, she has far more an inspirational aspect when she does go through, conflicts like that. So instead of judging her with the sacrifice storyline when she killed Max Lord, the whole context of her, what she did was to not only save Superman, but to save the whole world. Because if she wouldn't have made that choice, first of all, it's like, oh, why didn't you just lock him up or take his powers away? No, I can't really stand when people say, why can't they just lock him up, or why can't they just do this and that? Because first of all, 9 times out of 10, the same villain will get out and do more damage. So,
and when you have someone that can mind control Superman, that's kind of a bad idea.
Right. So yeah, he might as well just go ahead and kick the bucket, because with how Superman, he's already weak-willed for some reason. He doesn't have this certain, unless it's Golden Age and New 52, it seems like they want Superman to be a pushover and spineless in a sense. So that's much easier for him to get possessed. And what's his main thing is thinking that everyone is Doomsday and Lois has died. So he turns into Darkseid. He turns into this berserk monster, and then ends up almost or will kill innocent people. So Diana, for that storyline, to prevent her friend at the time from ruining his reputation, she took the fall for that. And instead of me understanding that she, again, not only saved his life but the whole world, he judged her. He, saying that she killed a human man, but it's kind of like, and this is something that we.
And I'm like, wait a second. By the way, Brit, did you know that in the John Byrne story, era of Superman, he killed Kryptonians?
That is what I'm gonna say. Yeah. Superman has killed before, so to act like that's never been a thing is very hypocritical and double standard. So going back to Max Lord and what we're doing with the Shelterverse and how we are explaining this, that just because Max Lord looks human, by appearance, his mindset and his actions is monstrous.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Particularly what we have him do in the Shelterverse, but more on that in the Shelterverse. The other thing that's kind of interesting with this is it's like, particularly ignoring Superman. Let's examine the other individual in here that's actually half this episode, Batman. Because remember, Batman's all about, in fact, guess what? So, Britt, do you know what the Tower of Babel storyline was motivated by?
no.
All right, so for those of you that don't know, Tower of Babel is the storyline where they instituted Batman has contingency plans for the Justice League. But what had happened, so it was this story called Silver Age. Britt, you will love this. So there was this villain named there was a villain named Agamemnon or something like that who had the Legion of Doom switch bodies with the Justice League, and they all learned the identities of the League, but they had the League's powers. So when they switched back and beat Agamemnon, Batman had contingency plans in case that ever happens again. In other words, in case the League loses control of their powers, Superman is mind controlled. So when Wonder Woman snaps Lord's neck and Batman himself is like, get out. And I'm like, hey, D-bag, you have contingency plans for this reason.
Right, he has contingency plans, but those are kind of selfishly. He is for his own paranoia and protection. And
but the motivation that he gave for those contingency plans is in case they're mind controlled.
Well, that is why the storyline is so hypocritical, and it doesn't make sense.
And Randy actually sums it up. Sacrifice was specifically designed to drive a wedge between Superman and Wonder Woman.
Exactly.
And yes, Brown, absolute power it didn't stick to landing. Big surprise.
Right. I mean, this has been Mark Waid's second event. I think it was Lazarus, or whatever that was.
Oh yeah, Lazarus Planet, and that one didn't work either. Man, it's almost as if he shouldn't be writing comics anymore. But anyway, so Britt, as you were saying about Batman,
well, with Batman, I mean, it's more so goes to his paranoia, and it's just the fact of Superman and Batman are put on these pedestals more so than Wonder Woman, of course, because she's a woman and stuff like that. And as we watched in the DC documentary, how comics, the fans, and everything, it's a boys' club. So not only was the storyline to put a wedge between Clark and Diana, but it's also to show that Superman and Batman are better and have a higher moral ground than Wonder Woman, which again, she is, like I said, the ambassador of peace. She's and while she is a warrior, she's still a warrior of peace.
And she's also a stay-at-home mom, according to Tom King.
Stop it.
We'll talk about that later, trust me, because that got us both steamed.
Yeah, I mean, real quick with that, issue 8 of Wonder Woman had her as a Stepford wife, and it was supposed to be, with the lasso of lies, and basically a nightmare for Diana as to be a stay-at-home wife or whatever. So for Tom King to make her a stay-at-home mom or something like that, and then not only that, but the reason why she is because basically she's kind of being like a widow for Steve dying. And, that really puts in the perspective of Tom King's self-insertion as like a military guy, this hero that dies in on the field or whatever like that. And so he has the girlfriend or the wife at home with the kid, and she's mopey. And so that's pretty much the scenario that he's put on Wonder Woman. And not only that, but the quote that I shared with you before, that for him to say that previous Wonder Woman runs, she wasn't the main protagonist. It was about her love interest or the villain. And so I'm like, or you're doing both. you're making this story about Steve, and then you have this Sovereign narrating the whole entire thing where Diana isn't the protagonist. She is basically a plot device for Steve and Sovereign. You know, so more on that before I get into it with Tom King. But yeah, back to Batman's double standard.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you know, again with that whole storyline, how people use it now to justify Diana killing without the context.
Mm-hmm.
DC has the more you see it, DC has really shot themselves in the foot with
Many
storylines
times.
with storylines that can be easily taken out of context and used to justify certain perspectives or narratives that, you know, so many fans are so simple minded in a sense to believe. You know, you can post, and the more we've gotten into comic book Twitter, especially on the DC side,
The hellhole
it's
that it is.
that is just awful. Like they will believe anyone, especially if you have over 2,000 followers or so, they will believe you with anything you say.
Or if you
And
seem to be official, like there's a certain Wonder Woman account that like markets itself as like an expert on Wonder Woman. I saw someone actually say, "Thank you for showing us how Wonder Woman should be," and I'm like, and of course, me being the petty a-hole that I am, is I went actually. She's just telling you how Wonder Woman's supposed to be, how her favorite version of Wonder Woman is. That's it.
exactly,
I always say that when they say this is the definitive version, and I always say ... to you. Even last night on CLD, William said the problem with comic book fandom is that they have a death grip on whatever version is meaningful to them, and they will not in any way compromise on that, even though these characters have existed for like 80 years.
and it's fine that you have a favorite version, but it's not the definitive version. It's not the, to you it can be, but it's not just the end all be all though.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
if you like another, if someone else likes another version, you shouldn't put them down for it. And I've seen, and we've seen a lot of that happening lately with particularly Superman, well, particularly Superman, but also Wonder Woman. Um, and especially when it goes down to the love interest and everything like that, or storylines, or even uniform, um, suit. I mean, the whole discourse on the red granny panties is so tedious. It's kind of like, why? Why are you worried about a man, grown man, wearing red granny panties on the outside of his onesie? That doesn't compute with me
I'm
at
like, who
all.
cares? It's a little weird that you're obsessed with a man wearing his underwear on the outside of his pants, but beyond that. But
Right.
the thing that we want to bring up with this is like, yeah, they're not as similar as people think they are, because that's one of the criticisms I think I hear the most is people will say, okay, you can't do Superman and Wonder Woman because they're the same character. And I'm like, have you actually read the books? Because no, they're not. And judging by Wonder Woman's, well, actually, judging by both readership numbers, I don't think so. But by the way, Cameron actually has a fantastic point here. He says the DC fandom, or more specifically Batman fans, have a weird obsession with saying that the contingency plans are necessary and that the league should be grateful that Bruce has them and not Lex. See, here's the problem. Because Batman is the like highest selling book, the Batman fans get to dictate DC, and then like they make it like Batman is this universal badass who is like the main. He's the god of the DC universe. And it's really weird because then Batman, like, essentially, it's like Batman can do anything, because he has prep time. Because he's Batman is not a legitimate argument anymore. It's funny, but it's not a legitimate argument.
Right. And the worst thing about it is that DC has made it like an official thing. They joke about it and they actually let that pass with writers. Kind of like Scott Snyder. He's the way his Absolute Batman, although it's very good, um, as a first issue, it it's
Or
not
Brit. How about Chip Zdarsky's Batman falling from space?
yeah, something like that. I get it that this is fiction and but at the same time, these characters, if you want the realism or if you want the characters to relate or something like that, falling out of the sky as a human, no, no, that just does not work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was even exposed to the vacuum of space for a significant time period, more than a human being would ever be able to live. But that's just because he's Batman. Next one, he's actually said that because I'm Batman, but it's really stupid. Next up, so here's the other thing. When I had comics explained on my show, he brought up that like there's no stakes with Superman and Wonder Woman, and you know what? No hate to Rob. I love the guy. He's one of my motivations for getting into comic book YouTubing. He's wrong on this because the entire run in the New 52 showed the stakes / external threats.
Right. To say that, honestly, you lack imagination. And if anything, you would have more stakes with them together. And it also kind of it's hypocritical and double standard when you have other power couples. You have Aquaman and Mira, you have Scott and Barda, you have the Starfire, Star Sapphire and Green Lantern. You have even, I mean, Disney, Pixar. You have the Incredibles. That is a big superhero family. Um, Fantastic Four. That all of these couples, superpowered couples, but for some reason, Superman and Wonder Woman is put under a microscope. And maybe it is because they are two different franchises, trying to combine it together, but it works. And the reason being is because Wonder Woman was created to be that counterpart for Superman, to challenge him, and to no, it wasn't particularly as a romance or anything. It wasn't anything like that. However, that is something that naturally occurred.
Yeah, and by the way, Barry Allen says, could easily write a story of them being stuck on Warworld trapped by Mongol. Or if she weren't dead, she could have showed up on the Warworld saga.
Well, yeah, that would have made sense, but I don't understand why they were trying to push the authority with that storyline. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think the James Gunn synergy was ramped at that time. So, but it felt like DC wanted their Death of Superman. When they used the C-listers for the Justice League. So you use the authority, which is kind of like a little low on power so Superman can stand out.
Well, even on that, the Justice League lineup back then was Naomi, Hippolyta, Green Arrow, Black Canary, I think Hawkgirl, and Batman. So, hey, what's up, V? And V says, for Batman, there's no one but Catwoman. Talia, Vicky Vale, Silver, don't come close. BatCat for each other's soulmates. Yeah, and we're going to talk about more on that later. But here's an idea. What if Martha Kent was the daughter of an Amazon who died after giving birth, so Martha never knew her mother? What if Hippolyta, while trying to find Martha Kent a home, ended up in Smallville? And lived with Wonder Woman in Smallville for a while. That would be an interesting Elseworlds.
Yeah. See, you can do a lot of interesting stories, combining their mythos to just create something wild and something that I don't even think, especially when Clark is with Lois, it seems like the stories are actually, first of all, they're regurgitated storylines,
And they're
and
boring.
second, yeah, and it's very limited. They say how, oh, you can do a lot with Chloe. No, you can't, because at the end of the day, like you say, he's gonna save her. You know, it's going to be some. It can't be any consequences with Superman. It has to be a happy ending, and I think that with Superman and Wonder Woman, you can feel the consequences, and they actually go through conflict, and it's something that, especially with the New 52, because people were so kind of like, oh, they're gonna break up at this time. It was unpredictable, and who would have thought that the reason why they, in a sense, broke up or didn't break up was because DC forced to kill New 52 Superman. But you can't say that any of the storylines that they had were predictable, because they weren't.
They weren't 100%. Well, the minute Doomsday shows up, but they don't do the death of Superman, that's very unpredictable.
Right.
But and yes, Super Wonder has the most the more potential for Elseworlds. Yeah, exactly. But it's like on that Doomsday point. It's like when BVS was coming out and I saw the trailer of Doomsday. Yes, I wasn't as familiar with comics at the time because I'd only just gotten into them for the first time. But I was familiar with when Doomsday shows up, Superman dies. So I knew that concept. When I read Superman Doom, though, I was like, oh, so he's
Oh,
not
this is
dying.
different.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm like, well, first off, he doesn't die. That's new. And he's turning into Doomsday?
And not only that, but it was more so, it wasn't about punching. The death of Superman is about, oh, I'm going to punch him real hard and then die. No, this was more of a a mental struggle for Clark. Doomsday became a virus, literally and metaphorically, and a monster within Clark and his own inner conflicts, his, taunting him with his doubts and his emotion. That is something that Clark and Diana, pretty much the theme of their relationship is always about that inner conflict, or more of an emotional type challenge. But with Clark and Lois, it really doesn't feel like any type of emotional challenge. It's more so gaslighting, or Clark feeling like he has to have mental gymnastics to pretend to be human, and rejecting his heritage and stuff like that. And once he becomes complicit and um, choosing just that way, but you are selfishly using your powers that you were gifted with or born with, yet you don't care for the heritage. Yeah, that is something that I will never agree with, but DC continues to glorify that.
Yeah.
Um,
Or even in this, when Lex finds out that like Superman and Wonder Woman are dating, he's like, oh no!
yeah, it's like you have these people, and that's pretty much another point of, the public perception of them. You don't know. It's kind of like more so, I would say, or studying the outside perspective too. Of We have Clark and Diana's inner perspective of them as characters, but what do people see of them truly? And to know that they're together, how would people react? What are their reactions? And that's something really you don't get with Clark and Lois, because first of all, I don't think there's ever been a storyline where they had like this media frenzy.
Nope.
It never was like that. It was kind of just like, just how the fans accept it is just, oh, she's the love interest. That's it. That's all.
Yeah,
Or
and I'm like, I watched. It's like even whenever I have anyone, by the way. So it's kind of funny. I had a funny Twitter interaction. Is I was debating this person, and then they told me that the Lois Lane series was popular. And I'm like, according to what metric? Because if you're talking about reviews, fine, we can debate that. But if we're talking about actual sales, in other words, the metric that DC really cares about, it was abysmal. That's the thing
That
about Lois. If she is some feminist icon like she is, by the way, Brit, here's the thing. I've seen people say that as she is the epitome of feminism. Oh, really? Then how come she can only sell if she's attached to a man?
right.
Wonder
Yeah.
Woman sells not as well as Batman or Superman, but she can carry a book by herself. Lois can't.
Right. I mean, the book. First of all, that same person said that Superman and Wonder Woman's title within New 52 was the weakest and lowest selling. So yeah, he's living
Whoa.
on. So he's very much on Bizarro World with that
Yeah,
because
you know who I'm talking about, Britt.
yeah, that is totally just kind of like I don't understand how anyone could like fix themselves to lie
You know
like
what
that.
it is, Britt? It's the Mandela effect. They want something to be true so badly that they'll manifest it in their heads.
And then when you show them, call them out on their lie, then they want to play victims or something like that, or they want to just say well, you don't read, or try to gaslight you into something like that. It's like, no, you're not going to gaslight me.
Or, oh, you're a Snyder fan. So?
Right. What is that doing? Nothing. You are a Snyder fan, yes, but at the same time, you read the comics. Snyder's movies got you into comics, and that's what it should be. It doesn't matter what iteration, what source you were exposed to these characters, and honestly, that exposure was good enough for you to end up becoming a comic fan.
Actually,
And
Britt, there was this fantastic thing so recently I've been watching a lot of history documentaries on YouTube. There's this fantastic channel called History Hit, and they do a lot of like in-depth documentaries about different periods in history. And they were doing this series where like a historian reacts to like historical movies. And they said something very interesting, Britt, that immediately made me think of this show and you. They said that, yeah, these movies take liberties and stuff for the sake of the movie, but I actually encourage it because that encourages someone to seek out the source material and learn more about like the characters, the stories, and all that stuff. So he goes, it's trying to expose a larger audience to these stories so that they'll go back and read the history. So I'm like, so kind of like how Zack Snyder's movies encourage more people, myself included, to pick up a comic book.
right, but because that is your first exposure, especially these self-entitled fans, they feel like if you haven't read Action Comics 1, or if you haven't read their favorite story, or agree with whatever they are persistent on pushing, then it doesn't matter what your first entry was. And especially with Snyder, they have this vendetta, or just if you are a Snyder fan, if you are a New 52 fan, a SuperWonder fan, you are just written off. They don't want to listen to anything, even if you're talking logically, or you have the evidence of reading the comics, of um, understanding the characters. And quite honestly, I would say that we tend to understand the characters a lot more than what they think they understand.
Yeah.
And because we don't put ourselves in a bubble, and just because we are a New 52 fan, or you mostly like advocate for Snyder, you still are you still kind of like accept or are interested in other comic books, though.
Mhm.
You collect, even if the book is terrible, like Wonder Woman, you you still go out and support and go buy the issues regardless.
Because I love the
Unless
artist. Unfortunately, the way Tom King normally works is he gets the best artist. And I want to support Diana as a character. The very
exactly,
fact that that involves supporting a reprehensible writer, I'll bite the bullet on that.
very much a catch-22. But yeah, it's things like that that they don't take consideration of at all. And
Like, let me tell you this. I spend $300 a month on comics. I read roughly 30 comics per month. I think I read the frickin' books.
yeah, and
Oh, and yeah,
even
Randy, according to Twitter, Superman was created in the 80s.
definitely post-crisis is the end all be all for them. I mean, even with the golden age, they pick and choose when they want to talk about the golden age. I saw one tweet that he's it's kind of like they are, of course, pumping up Superman because of the movie and everything like that, and truly acting like these Superman cheerleaders. But they, how they talked about New 52 Superman, which he was the modern golden age Superman, they are now talking about absolute Superman the same way. And he tweeted how, oh, this is going back to the golden age and he's going to do this and that. It's like New 52 did the same exact thing. And you basically had a fit, of course, because of his relationship with Diana. But
Mhm.
now, but if there is no relationship with Diana in the absolute universe, now you're accepting, it. And it's kind of like, again, hypocrisy and the double standard. But they yeah, the Superman fans are very trifling and shady,
Very.
and I mean
And by
the
the way,
experience.
Brown brings up most people who hate Zack Snyder are from the Justice League cartoon watcher and never touch comics. That's the other thing. People treat the DCAU like that's what they base the comics off of. And I'm like, see, here's the
No,
thing.
it's not.
I encounter so many people that think Wonder Bat was the relationship for Wonder Woman for years. And I'm like, she has never been in a relationship with Batman.
Right,
Never.
or it's the fact that um they think that everything is supposed to be heavily inspired by the DCAU.
No, which I do not want. Definitely.
Right. I mean, when they were creating the DCAU for and with Wonder Woman, they were basically going back and forth saying that she has multiple iterations, and do you want her to be Linda Carter iteration or Perez? And they didn't choose that because they thought that that was boring or it didn't, they didn't vibe right with it. So they created this total different character basically to be a Batman cheerleader. And they thought that that was more interesting and also to make her turn into a pig. So that's pretty much how low they think of Wonder Woman is to turn her into a pig.
Yeah, she was Bat Simp. She wasn't Wonder Woman. She was known as Bat Simp. That's what I from now on call her. By the way, and you know what's kind of funny? And you brought this up when we covered the DCAU, how like Wonder Woman's skin tone changes when she goes from the show to the actual like Justice League versus Fatal 5 movie. And I'm like, it's as if they finally figured out that it makes no sense for a character that comes from the Mediterranean to have like an American skin. The only thing that I'm like still waiting for is for more of Wonder Woman having an accent because again it works best that way.
Yeah, Diana, if you in the comics, she is always said to have like this sort of accent and this exotic voice. And even though in the comics some artists have Diana like eggshell white or Snow White or something, the artists that give her, a little bit of melanin, that works best for the Diana. I showed you that Looney Tunes variant cover and how her complexion was there. That is how I picture Diana, and even in the New 52, especially Tony Daniels' art when he had her a little bit tanner, it it worked, you know. Um, and honestly, I just don't know why it's so difficult for them to give us a better representation for Wonder Woman.
I'll give you a
She
hint, Brit. It involves xenophobia.
Well, yeah, that's true. I mean,
Because it's harder to have Wonder Woman wrapped in the American flag, i.e., Tom King book, if she has an American accent. Oh, trust me, I am very salty about that. As someone that considers himself pretty patriotic, I hated that thing. I'll get more in this because trust me, it's simmering. It's simmering. It's like essentially a volcano that's building pressure, and it's gonna build and build and build. As soon as I saw that, Brit,
yeah,
as soon as I saw that, I was like, "That's wrong."
I mean, Diana is supposed to. She's supposed to be, and Jim said this. She's supposed to be every woman, and she isn't supposed to. So, what I would think is that she's pretty much racially ambiguous, and that pretty much you go with that sort of line, and you can find a woman that is racially ambiguous. You really can. So for Tom King to say, I mean Tom King, well you might as well say Tom King, but James Gunn to say it's difficult to find an actress. Well, he said that she's tall, but if you are just kind of like looking for that average woman and that you friends with, I mean you're kind of missing the point of Wonder Woman.
Well, she's gonna cast his wife as Wonder Woman. We all know that. We all know that's
Oh my
inevitable.
gosh.
Yeah, we all know that's inevitable because he casts only the people he knows as these characters. But anyway, more on that. Truth, justice, and American way will always be the catchphrase for me. Yeah, because I prefer American way, but I understand the and a better tomorrow thing. But I think the problem with changing this is the one time I'll address this. The problem with changing the motto for Superman is, first off, it's been that way for 80 years. But also the other thing is, like it or not, even though these characters are like global icons and global superheroes, they are part of American mythology. And when you change that, you kind of get rid of like that part of the character's history. I understand the concept of like a better tomorrow. And you know what? It sounds great. I'm fine with it. It's just I'm not that like convinced that by the way, did you notice that after like 5G or anything like that, after that fell apart, like when the Super Sons movie came out, they started saying truth, justice, and the American way more?
Right. Honestly, I think that the American way, it is supposed to be of, the land of the free, of how in Justice League Throne of Atlantis, when Clark says that you are supposed to blend in. So
Yeah,
it's not hiding, it's not, being ashamed of
it's
yourself.
shorthand.
You know, it, but the way the American way is now is very.
Yeah, but here's the difference, Brett. Superman's like Captain America. He's not so. There you go. There you go. Barry summarized exactly what I was going to say. Barry, you and I are in such sync. Barry says Clark should be like Captain America. They know the country isn't perfect, but they represent what it's supposed to be. I mean, even the Snyderverse, Superman's Jor-El says you will be a light to guide them, essentially. So yeah, he's not supposed to. By American way, he's talking about what America should be, not what it is.
Right. Well, that honestly, this is a conversation that should be told to Tomasi.
Oh yeah, because too many writers take that as like Superman is going to be going into battle holding the American flag, and I'm like, yeah, as much as that'd be a hilarious image, I'm not in favor of that. But anyway, continuing on, by BatCat brings the sales. Wonder Bat brings nothing. Yes, it does. Wonder Bat doesn't bring sales. And by the way, Super Sons. Oh, you mean the movie that flopped? Yeah. But my point is, it's kind of, yes, it did flop tragically, but not tragically. The movie was not that good. But my point is,
So it was
with
tragic.
it was tragic to a degree that it's like that it flopped that much. But my point is with this is like that was after they changed the motto, and then they never said a better tomorrow, because you know why? I think the better tomorrow was supposed to be John's like motto, because if you notice, the only person that ever said a better tomorrow was John. So I think
Yeah, it was.
they decided that John was not going to be like the main Superman, they're like, okay, change it back.
Yeah, it was. It was. Um, John's whole thing was supposed to be the better Superman, and just his whole character poorly executed. The motivation behind him, the lack of thought process. Yeah, he was not going to be better than Clark. Um, he didn't even honestly. I don't even know what he's done to even warrant, trying to make him another Superman.
He
Um,
hasn't. By the way, going on to external threats, I wanted to bring this up because here's how this works with BatCat. Because yeah, Selina's a criminal, and that's like ensemble. She's owned that. You can kind of tell that sometimes Batman gets judged because he's so in love with a criminal being who he is. But the thing about Batman's relationship with Selina and the reason why it works is because she shows him that, because I feel like when he became Batman, he kind of had this black and white view on crime. It's good, like all these criminals are bad people. But then when he meets Selina, he learns that's not necessarily true.
right, that, and I would say that Selena uh, is kind of teetering the morally gray type thing.
But she's
Um,
not a bad person, is my
right,
point.
right. I mean, they basically just have emotional trauma. That's with the Gotham's, you know, um, Gotham's darkness and everything, and just with Selena, like I said, she lived on the streets for a very, growing up. She knows, how the women of Gotham has been abused. She knows
Wasn't she also a prostitute in some continuities?
I don't, I think that was just Frank Miller. I think it was, but
Because I thought in year one they made it where she was a prostitute. They later got rid of that, but my point is, I think at some point she was that.
she was, but again, being that way, she had to grow up tough.
Mm-hmm.
It was being orphaned, being trying to, I think she has a sister, so she's trying to
Mm-hmm.
take care of her sister, and at the same time, she's trying to take care of other women that she's grown up with or that she sees, and children as well in Gotham that don't have a home and living on the streets and everything like that. And then with Bruce, he's very privileged, but yet he lost his parents
Mm-hmm.
to the alleyway of Gotham, to the streets, basically. And with him, you have trying to do uh, charity work and everything, trying to make Gotham better. So, in their own different ways, Selena and Bruce uses their childhood trauma to, like I said earlier, make Gotham better. That, yeah, they're going to go through all the struggles of Gotham, but it should kind of like build them to be stronger for Gotham.
Exactly. So then we get to our next point here is the emotional burden. So we're getting to this. So man's responsibilities they carry as protectors of the world can take a personal toll. And yeah, and this was the point that they made in like Justice League 12, where they can't open up to people because they're Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, with this is they understand that they aren't, and it's kind of like a broken record. We keep having to say this because a lot of people want to say, oh, they are just gods trying to be together or godlike beings or something like that, or, but it's kind of like right in black and white in this issue, they point blank, or Diana at least point blank says, or even no, you can watch Throne of Atlantis as well. And they say, or she says, we are not gods, or we are not like Zeus, but they're not mortal. So they understand that they are, and like I've said, they are in the in between. And they are bridging both worlds together in a sense. Clark, he's not human. He's not. He may look human, but he's very much an alien from a different
And
planet.
he doesn't have to be made human.
And honestly, the other question I have is, what makes you human? Is it by appearance? Is it because Diana, she is human by way of living on an island of Earth. She is very much an Earth woman. Even again, black and white. Maxima, I think it was a Justice League international issue, or maybe something like that. It was an annual, but Maxima called her an Earth woman. She, or Earth princess or something like that.
And she's from Earth.
Right. Just because
she's geographically from Earth. She's more human than Clark is by that definition.
And not only that, but Diana is Earth. She was born in the purest of way of, if you are, in a biblical sense, her being molded of clay, or the sands of the mascara of Earth. That's how she was born. So you can put that within, or compare that to Adam, the first man of Earth, and he's the purest, or he's human. So why are you taking that away from Diana just because she is from a foreign island? And that is pretty much, to me, that is what makes you human to some, particularly Superman fans, is that if you were born and raised in America, that's what makes you human.
That's the problem with like Tomasi or even Byrne, because didn't Byrne get in trouble for calling immigrants ungrateful?
Yes.
And I'm like, no wonder. It's kind of funny, Brit. When I found that out, this was before I found out about the Superman kissing a 14-year-old girl. And before you say it, Brit, I'm never gonna let that go. But I was reading the book, and then as soon as I read that, as soon as you told me that, I'm like, I was actually going to cover that on the channel, that Man of Steel series. But then as soon as I read that, I'm like, well, I'm not reading that. And then the second time it happened was I had just finished reading the first volume of his Wonder Woman, and or as Jid calls her, crackhead Wonder Woman. Yeah, I love that. But and then I found out about the 14-year-old girl, and I'm like, well, I dodged a bullet. Closed. Continuing on. Then we get the longevity and like mortality. No, it wasn't Tomasi Cameron. It was John Byrne. He got in trouble. So John Byrne is an immigrant to the United States, but he called immigrants that wanted to preserve some element of their culture ungrateful.
I just find that so
insulting.
And also, if he had that experience, if he's had that trauma of people telling him that, that's his experience. But the way he pushed that on Superman, and now that is kind of like a long-term effect of the character, to where everyone demonizes Krypton and makes it seem like if he dare, utter a positive line about Krypton, he's just an alien. His humanity is in question. And he's not human. He's not. He's an alien, but that is okay. You see videos on TikTok or Twitter that even says like how a dog or something, or your pet is, or even a horse. I've seen a video where the owner was crying,
Ooh, it's
and
even worse, Brit. So I looked it up. He said in 2005, criticizing portrayals of Superman emphasizes his connection to his home planet. Byrne described immigrants with what he perceived as an excessive attachment to their nations of origin as ungrateful little shits.
yeah, I mean, I don't now with saying that, I don't understand why DC continues to have writers that, like I said, demonize Krypton and make that continue to make that a thing. I mean, even in the if it's going to be in the movies like that, the TV shows definitely, because he's and he's never called Cal. It's always in a sense of like a villain maybe calling him Cal, and it's a negative thing. But when Diana calls him Cal, it is always something of honor and positive. But at the same time, when she calls him that, fans, claim that she's trying to take away his humanity or something like that.
Yeah, it's on that. I have a friend that said that Jonathan and Martha Kent would not necessarily accept Diana as Clark's girlfriend. I'm like, on what planet wouldn't they accept her?
Because they think that Martha and Jonathan are like, as being in Kansas on a farm.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
so you get to the longevity or mortality. Here's the thing about SuperWonder that none of these idiots on Twitter are willing to admit. SuperWonder is an inevitability, because even if he's with Lois first, as we saw in Crisis, the Tomorrowverse, Lois is going to die eventually of old age. It's gonna happen. And if you notice, every time we see like the distant future where Superman was with Lois, but then she died, he ends up with Diana.
That's pretty much why they want Clark and Diana to have average lifespans and grow old to die with Steve and Lois. Or that Clark ends up as kind of like a recluse, basically.
Yeah, like in Kingdom Come. But it's kind of funny, and Barry Allen brings up this point. It's almost like Super Wonder is, and I'm gonna say this, in Brit and I's like multiverse that we have created, it is a like certainty. It's a multiversal constant that Superman and Wonder Woman eventually get together.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Cameron says, what those fans don't get is that Clark and Cal are both his names. He has his adopted name and the native name that he proudly takes. Yeah, he embraces both. That's the thing. She calls him Clark as well. In fact, I brought this up even in Kingdom Come. She first calls him Clark. After he corrects her, he calls her Cal. So I'm like, she calls him Clark, but she also calls him Cal because with Diana, as we saw in like Superman Wonder Woman by Charles Sewell, she's about embracing all that you are, all parts of who you are. Be true to thyself, essentially, is her philosophy.
Right.
So she acknowledges he is Clark, because up until like a certain point in his life, he thought he was just Clark Kent. But he's also Kal-El. You can't ignore that.
Well, his own fans do.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And yeah, his own, because again, the fans emphasize John Byrne as like the definitive, and when James Gunn talks about he loves John Byrne's Superman, I'm like, oh no. So that's when I get really concerned. But anyway,
Right.
because I'm like, are they gonna like blast the immortality? But no. But by the way, so our next point here is arguably one of the most like interesting points about this couple, and then we'll get to BatCat. I promise. All this is the setup for the conversation. But the thing about this that's actually really cool, this is this next point is very meta, because public scrutiny. Because it's like whenever you have a Superman writer or a Superman director whose last name is Snyder, I wonder who that could be, has Superman do anything that like stands in violation to how the public sees him, guess what? They're like, oh my gosh, that Superman sucks. It hates it. Or like there's that one panel that's like people say how Zack Snyder sees Superman. They ignore all the times that he has Superman smile. And then it's just like Superman with the red eyes. Like it's like all images like this. And I'm like, hey, a-hole, you clearly didn't watch the movie because he smiles a lot.
Exactly. And it's, I mean, Superman can't, like I said earlier, he can't go through struggles. It's kind of like, even if he does, it has to be resolved quickly, and you have to know that it's a happy ending. And the fact that someone on Twitter called Superman and Wonder Woman predictable, it's kind of like, no,
Thank you.
well, yeah, you in a sense take it positive, as in it's obvious of in a positive way of, yeah, that means that they naturally are to be together. But with this person, how negative they want to say is that it's predictable in a sense of the storyline. You know what's going to happen, and it's kind of like, no, you really don't. But you, in the same breath, in a sense, you say, but Superman belongs or always supposed to be with Lois. Isn't that just as predictable, if not more so predictable?
Yeah, because it's a hard, fast rule. That's not a rule. It's just you made it up and made it a rule. Like he has to have his underwear on the outside of his pants, or can't ever be a relevant character. Yes, I put that in as a little dig, but it's like even with the new 52, or even with this, because that's one of the things they complain about in JL12. Is like they're saying everyone just looks to us. We're constantly under a microscope, kind of like celebrities, and it's like we never get like a moment to breathe. And it's like even with the relationship when it became public and power couple, you saw how like everything like exploded in terms of like everyone's talking about it.
That, and I mean, you do want that type of interaction, that public reaction. And it's interesting, to see how different people react to it. But when you are constantly negative about it, and in a meta sense too, like reality of the fans on Twitter, it's kind of like you just suck the fun out of it all. And
That's why I always tell Brit, ignore those people, because there's plenty of stuff to be excited about, like Godzilla versus Justice League 2.
I mean, it with that storyline, it was okay.
Killer Croc becomes a kaiju and fights Kong. That is awesome. But my point is, it's like, hey, so I got Brit into Green Lantern, and she was very excited.
Yeah, and like I said, I like the fact that every lantern has, their own unique background, and they aren't redundant like the Superman family, where it basically feels like an extension of Clark. You know, I mean, the only one that doesn't feel like that is Kara, but
Oh, did you read the run where Kara becomes a Red Lantern?
yeah, well, I didn't read the entirety of it, but I did, a few panels here and
Well,
there.
by the way, there's a part in Jeff Johns' Green Lantern where two Green Lanterns are chosen, but they're from planets that are at war with each other, and they have to learn to, like, you could say, put racial differences and animosity aside and work together.
See, those type of storylines that you would think, would be in Superman and Wonder Woman as well, because of who they are as these global icons. And like I said, they are supposed to be bridging worlds and cultures together. And because they are from basically two different cultures, or Diana, she's pretty much three, I would say, because you have her Amazon culture. If depending on if you want to have the Zeus origin, but she has the gods and everything that comes with that. and then integrating within man's world, and that is a vast of and a multitude of cultures.
And you just gave me an idea.
I need to stop talking.
There you go. I'll explain later. But yeah, and if he struggles or gets angry or sad, he's suddenly not Superman. Yeah, they expect Superman. See, here's the thing. They think Superman was always like hand on the hip, smiling. I remember seeing Christopher Reeve get angry or smile or like wrathful, but no one threw a fit. That's my problem, Brit. And actually, Nick wisely summed this up last night on the show. The problem with DC, like, discourse, particularly in the Snyder like realm, is that they'll bash Snyder for doing something and then praise a different filmmaker for doing the exact same goddamn thing.
Exactly. I mean, comic book, they do that even with storylines. Even they this same person. It's kind of like you want to make a dig at the power couple, but they like basically having a fit over Clark and Diana, and that whole title, and just basically damn the whole ship over them having powers and stuff. But then they are praising the fact that Lois is having powers temporarily,
and talking about I can't wait to see them bang, and I'm like, where was this criticism?
Right, but at the same time, I understand now why they are praising it, is because they feel that it's only temporary. And after that, Lois is going to be put back in the she's going to be put back in the background, or it's that Superman has to save her at some point,
Or see the thing about it, Britt, I know they won't do that. I know they won't do what I'm about to say, but do you guys know what happened to Lois the last time she got powers in Rebirth? She exploded.
Dude,
I know they won't do that, but I'm like, hey, the opportunities. You even brought back Doomsday. And if there's one thing he's known for, it's killing super people.
Honestly, I would say that
because again, Britt, speaking of predictable stories, how amazing, how unpredictable would it be if Doomsday kills Lois? I'm being serious. This is not an anti-Lois bashing thing, even though it's an added bonus that it can be. This is, hey, DC, take a risk.
No, they can't take a risk. Not
they can't do that. According to Dan DiDio, by the way, Dan, if somehow you're watching this, please come on the show. We'd love to have you. But DC is too much of a wuss in order. There's another word I want to use, but I can't because it's a PG podcast. So I'm just going to go with this. They're wusses, okay? They're wusses. I would give Lois powers just to see a villain humble her. That's true. If she gets her ass kicked by like a D-list supervillain at first, that's going to be a panel that I hang on my room and say, ha, 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 ha.
They are not going to do that.
They're not going to do that. They will ray her. They will turn her into a Mary Sue because she's Lois Lane. And I'm like, yeah, that just makes her lame. Anyway, moving on. Now we get to BatCat. Now, so here's the interesting thing. So yes, it began with the 40s. And this was, I get the feeling they really pushed BatCat eventually because there was a book that came out that basically accused Batman and Robin of being gay. So they're like, quick, what are the hot women in Batman's lives that we can push him with?
Oh yeah, that is why they pretty much made Catwoman. But also it's just the fact that, like I said earlier, it teeters on the line of being morally gray, but at the same time they still have the same goals. And it's the same way of how Clark and Diana, they may have different perspective of their, being outsiders of an immigrant and refugee, but they still have that same goal to bridge these cultures and these worlds together. So with Bruce and Selena, it's bridging Gotham to be better. Now,
Real quick, the one thing I'm going to mention, DC actually was smart this time with Batman too. So remember how I was praising Green Lantern for putting Hal and Carol back together?
mm-hmm.
They put Bruce and Selena back together.
Oh, they are back together?
I believe yes, I believe they are. Pre-Absolute Power, after the whole like storyline that Zdarsky was doing, she did end up at his like new like mansion, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So they are back together. So I'm like, DC gave me two of my favorite couples back together. We just need the first one. But there's a very lame individual. Let me put it this way. I love, by the way, I just want to say this one quick thing. We'll move on. When Steve was killed by Tom King, so many people DM'd me and goes, "One down." And I'm like, here's the problem. They're more likely to kill Steve Trevor than Lois Lane.
That's true, because no matter how much, well, it's pretty much writers, like a particular writers that try to make Steve work. It's not so much as editorial. Editorial faster wants to kill him off than, have their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So with Steve, I would say within the Bronze Age, maybe, or even earlier than that, they have had fans when you could send in like fan letters or something, and they've talked about how Steve is boring. I remember they said, at that time when you can call him as boring of a sack of potatoes or something like that, and
even comic historians said it was boring.
Yeah, that he really, to me, with Steve, I tried to give him at least some type of to see, just not write him off completely as a love interest. That he can be good for Diana, and as like him being her Lana Lang, that first experience, that first curiosity. But after that, it's kind of like an amicable breakup or so, or just like she moves on naturally. But trying to force him as this great love because that's the first man she met, it doesn't work. And it's something that is just basically there. And you don't really invest in it. You don't see them actually go through anything and struggle. And that's pretty much what Tom King, I mean, within 2 issues, he wanted us to believe that Diana was so in love with Steve, out of nowhere. Even having her be out of character, making out with him during a crisis.
Exactly. Oh, Enzio says George Perez could only make Wonder Woman work. They weren't together in the Perez run, though. He was more of a father figure to her, and you know what? It worked.
Yeah, Steve being, and this is what Jid also brought up, was that Steve is the representation of the mortal men, that they have changed, or that there is at least one man that is good within man's world. And the same thing can be said about Clark, is that he represents more so the godlike, quote unquote, man, or the man with powers, because he, in a sense, the antithesis and the total opposite of Zeus or Hercules. He that is what Clark and Steve represent. Clark represents the man of power. Steve represents the mortal man, but they are both good men and give Diana that experience. So I've tried to give Steve that if he is a love interest. But yeah, I honestly, the way Tom King has written
you
it,
give them an inch, they take a mile, Brit.
and that is
That's the
what
thing.
Tom King.
That's what Tom King is doing. I would
In
also have
1984.
Yeah, I would also have Steve be a World War II veteran father figure, or just have him be like Lois. And well, having him having anyone be like Lois is a very slippery slope, Cameron. And have him be one of Diane's best friends. The best friends part, but I'm like, don't be like Lois. No one should ever be like that shrew. Anyway, continuing on. So then, by the way, I have a friend of mine, Darius, and Darius, if you're watching this, shout out to you, bro. He always comes up with like really hilarious nicknames for Lois. One of the ones that he did was, he said, okay, so he calls her Lois. I have daddy issues that I take out on my superpowered husband Lane.
Yeah, that's
I'm
sums it
like,
up.
I'm like, oh my gosh, that is great. But anyway, so continuing on, then we have, so now we're gonna go to the conflicting loyalties, because again, this is where we get with Batman Catwoman. And here's the thing. Batman Hush actually summarized this really, really, really well, because in that issue, in that time when they kiss and everything, after that, Batman's like, this is wrong, I shouldn't be thinking of her, she's a criminal. And then slowly she starts to like work way into his life. Even Nightwing's like, she's good for you, bro. And then Batman's like, shut up.
I mean, the BatCat chase, you know, of she Bruce likes bad girls. That's the number one thing.
So he wouldn't
But
like, so he would like Maxibat for life.
yeah, he definitely would. I mean, I think Jason Aaron actually for his Batman Offworld miniseries, I don't even know if anyone is reading that,
No,
but
he dated a more hardcore version of Starfire.
right. So, you know, if you could think that Batman is with any type of sweet, you know, a sunshine girl, no. He's very much into the mysterious femme fatale type uh, female character. And I would say that Catwoman fits that to the core. And what really interests Bruce, what makes him, is not that he wants to change her either. And Selina isn't trying to change him. You know, their trauma, it, the way Tom King, with his book, he made Batcat overly toxic, and to where Batman was suicidal. That he, when you know, not being,
I'm suicidal and my suicide is Batman. And I'm like, okay, that's stupid as hell.
yeah, or that Bruce can't be happy because he has to be Batman. You know, something like that, and just
I'm like, hey, bro, you were with Selina many times as Batman and you were fine. So, yeah, Enzio says Tom King made Batman a sim. Did you know that also that Tom King once established that Batman's favorite, not favorite, Batman's nightmare was that Selina would actually have a life outside of being his girlfriend?
what?
That was a thing that they established. It's like his nightmare is like Selina having friends outside of him and stuff. And I'm like, I'm reading this and I'm like, I could see
So
why some people don't like this run.
so Tom King really has an issue with female characters or men being.
Methinks really he just doesn't like his wife having friends outside of him. So he's really acting out inside this, because I'm convinced he's using this as his therapy.
I mean, didn't he say that at first he said Catwoman was like his, it was a love letter to say he loved his wife.
Well, that's concerning.
And then
Based
you
upon
brought up,
someone that read 50 issues of his run, that is very concerning.
and then you brought up that Wonder Woman, he's now trying to, in a sense, have her as kind of like a personification or whatever of his wife. And
And then if Trinity is supposed to be his daughter, he must really hate his daughter. But anyway, that's the. I'm sorry, Trinity's a female dog. I'll say that. She's a female dog. But anyway, See, the thing is, so Barry Allen says, just talked to a Wonder Bat fan last week who tried to dumb down BatCat 2. There's nothing compelling about a guy who dresses like about a girl who dressed like a cat and a guy who dressed up like a bat. Again, these people are very superficial.
And what's so funny is that they always like throw um the characters under the bus for another ship. It's kind of like, okay, how they talk about Clark and Diana, that they are bad for each other, or that they can be better people with other people or something like that. So it's kind of like, okay, if they are so bad, then why would you want them to be with the character that you obviously like more and care about? And honestly, that's only because you want Clark and Diana to be tamed or be obsessed with Lois and Steve as maybe that individual um, is. And again, it's so hypocritical and it doesn't make sense. Um, so with BatCat to say that a man dressed in a cowl, okay, so if he was with anyone else, he would be dressed with a cowl.
Yeah.
So why?
Well, the other thing is like, you claim to be a Batman fan, but you don't know there's a reason why he's in the cowl. It's not just like he woke up one day and decided, I'm going to dress like a bat today. It's
Right,
trauma.
it's they, like I said, they throw these characters under the bus for ships, and it doesn't make sense when you want them to be with other people. Like I said, if they were so bad or if they are just this ridiculous, why would you want them with the character that you prefer?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that again, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, DC fans being inconsistent / hypocritical. Gasp! Say
Right,
it ain't true, Brit.
right.
But by the way, Atchison brings up a good point. Superman and Wonder Woman are the day couple. Batman, Catwoman are the night couple. It's almost like that's how we base this episode.
Right.
So continuing, by Adam West and Julie Newmar had great chemistry. Yep. You know who also had good chemistry is Bale and Hathaway. By the way, so in the unaired Ben Affleck Batman movie, so the background of this Batman, in addition to like him being divorced from him losing Robin, he was married to Selina Kyle, and at one point they got divorced. So my whole thinking is the way I like headcanon this is that after he lost Robin, he started to get more brutal. Then Selena was like, saw that he was becoming too dark and then left. Now, the thing is, in the Batman movie, she would have shown up played by Carla Gugino, which I'm like, I can see that
Yeah,
for an
that
older
is a
Batman that would
very
work
good.
with Ben Affleck. I'm like, yep, that works.
Definitely works.
And you could say like maybe that Batman movie would have been him trying to get Selena back. I don't know, maybe. But anyway, so there's a conflict. So then there's trust issues, and yeah, Batman is the poster child for trust issues, which is here's my problem with that, Brit. That is a problem with Wonder Bat because he's never going to completely trust her. And
Right.
here's the other thing. She's never going to completely trust him because, by the way, in Tower of Babel, and see, I know this because I'm a Snyder fan that reads comics. Wonder Woman didn't voted to kick him out of the Justice League because of this violation of trust.
But those types of things are very much ignored.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because you actually have to read the comics. See, here for those of you comics Twitter people watching this, there's this magical thing that actually is great. A great thing about comics, they're books, and you can actually read them. You can run your eyes over the words, and then meaning is gleaned from it, and you can look at the pictures. Isn't that interesting? You can actually know what you're talking about instead of speaking over your ass and repeating the same talking points 11 goddamn times.
Right.
As you can see, Brit, I am very salty about this.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's very annoying with the hypocrisy. And like you said, with reading with reading these books and the topics that we talk about and the points that we make, or things that we bring up, we don't sugarcoat anything. We don't leave out. We have an episode which we criticize and put out point blank the ways of I would say the bad interpretations of SuperWonder. We take accountability for those types of or storylines or instances, but for other ships, they think that to make their ship seem so much better, and just everything is all meant to be, quote unquote, they gloss over the issues. And DC, honestly, uh um they do that as well, because they just say that over 80 plus years this couple has been a thing, but they never actually talk about the deep cuts of it, though, that Lois and Clark has not been married for the 80 plus years. It took them forever. And even within the marriage, how it has been dysfunctional, it's been boring, a lot of toxic stuff and has happened between Lois and Clark. Even with BatCat, it hasn't always been peachy. They're still not peachy, even if they are together now. But DC will swear up and down that they have been together forever. And
Well,
that's
because
something.
guess what? Again, it's only based off those stupid cartoons by Bruce Timm. And yes, I blame Bruce Timm for Wonderbat, because if someone had if he was like the head of the DCAU, as some people say, then guess what? He could have overridden the Wonderbat if he was really against it. I get the feeling that Susan Eisenberg was just playing interference. Anyway, going to trust issues on the poster child for this, that's like a conflict that Bruce and Selina run into, because again, there have been times throughout the history where she has betrayed him, or like she has left him out to dry and he has to pick up the pieces. Or with the Tom King run where Batman gets jilted at the altar.
Yeah, that was not at all Selina, though. I just don't
Actually, you know what?
really
Screw it. Screw it. Discussion on Tom King's Batman. Yes, I made an entire slide on Tom King's Batman, Brit.
I did not expect that at all.
Because we're talking about Batman, Catwoman, and Batman Talia, but it's included in this. So I'm like, we can't without. This is going to be a very bashing Tom King stream, by the way, in case you guys don't already know that. See, here's the thing. Made Batman a sad sack, and it's like, okay, so for some reason you bring back Flashpoint Batman and have him go, don't be Batman, Bruce. Okay, so you didn't pay attention to what I said, so now I'm going to destroy your life and kill Alfred.
Yeah, killing Alfred, I still don't understand especially because the way Tom King has it, of course, it devastated Bruce, but at the same time, the way it happened, it's kind of like Tom King cannot write death well, and
No.
and even the lead up to it, or the character reaction to it, um, it just feels very contrived, and it's so dumb how he
Oh,
makes the
Brit.
characters uh to make the death happen, like he did with Steve. I mean, that whole issue really doesn't make any sense, because it's just
Wait,
like
Brit, we're going to get to there. I promise you. I have an entire slide on this.
yeah.
There's one more thing I want to say about this. So there was an arc where Booster Gold wants to get Batman a wedding present. So when he gets him, he goes back in time and saves the Wayne, so he can give Batman a life if his parents didn't die. Well, first off, Dick Grayson becomes an evil gun-toting Batman for some reason. And second off, the first time you see this, you know what's the first issue? Speaking of lanterns, is Hal Jordan going, this ring I can't use this ring to kill myself. But you know what? I probably have the same willpower to do it. So Lantern puts the ring up to his head and blows his brains out.
Tom King is so
I'm reading this and I'm like, this right here is why. And I posted this on Twitter when it was announced that he would be involved in Lanterns. I said, this is why this is a red flag.
No, that is awful.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it oh, and by the way, so the Selina in this world is so mentally challenged that she only goes like meow. She only meows like an actual cat.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
know why
and
she
she
does
murders the Waynes, by the way.
that.
So
I
Booster Gold's
totally.
plan is, so he goes, okay, I'm gonna bring Selina to Bruce because she could snap him out of this. I can use her to convince him that to let me go undo the universe. To let me undo the gift. So he does that. He brings him to Bruce, and then Bruce, Selina Wayne looks at Bruce and then uses her claws and slashes the throats open of the Waynes in front of him.
Oh my God, I don't remember that. Reading that, and I don't think I
I read
want
this
to.
and I'm like, I can see why people don't like this run.
I mean, honestly, this is why. I mean, DC putting him on an ongoing Wonder Woman book when her book has struggled, and they honestly they only put him on because they think, of course, controversy sells. We know that, but it's not at the expense of
Here
Wonder
we go.
Woman. And
So it's collected in the trade. By the way, here's the trade of Green Lantern blowing his brains out. Wait, it gets worse. He even has a freaking smile on his face. Yes, it's Hal Jordan. And then here is the panel. By the way, so and also Duke Thomas is mentally challenged and screaming, but Selina also, yeah, she only says meow. And I'm trying to find the actual page where she kills the Waynes. All right, here it is. So she slashes the Waynes, throats open, licks the blood off her claws.
oh my God.
And then she's killed by Batman, Dick Grayson. And then Batman picks up a gun and shoots Dick Grayson, Batman.
All of this is just.
I'm reading this and I'm like, what the hell? And this is why Booster Gold, by the way, was in Sanctuary. This incident is why that BS happened.
This is awful. Like now I remember reading this, but I out of sight, out of mind, kind of forget and didn't want to be reminded. So thank you, Eric.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're lucky. You're lucky. Tom King was not involved in Amazon's attack, or I'd be referencing that of the yin yang. But he might as well be. I swear, if his next arc is called Amazon's attack, I'm gonna be freaking pissed. But this just screams. I love Cameron. This just screams. Look at me. I'm cool and edgy. You're not even cool. Here's the thing. And by Cameron, you are cool. I'm saying Tom King is not cool. But the thing is, again, this is Tom King trying to be Alan Moore. And here's the problem with that. Alan Moore does not even want to be Alan Moore anymore.
Right.
That's the point. Stop trying to impersonate other writers. Be you.
Because he thinks he can be better. That is the same thing he's doing
Like
with
George
Wonder
Perez.
Woman. Yes. I mean, how do you create a one-sided beef challenge or whatever with the writer who basically
defined that character? By the way,
yeah.
one more part about the Tom King's Batman run that I thought you would enjoy. So, for some reason, Batman has to bring Selina to meet Talia. Now, so Brit,
I can't stand that. Yeah.
would you say Talia is a good swords person?
She very much is.
Selina kicks her ass with a sword.
Yes, I know that issue.
I'm like, what? Wait.
And well, Tom King did have Selina outmatched or faster than the Flashes as well.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna say it. That's woke as hell. All right, moving on. Speaking of Talia, as a matter of fact, so then we have Talia. Now here's the thing. This is a character that I had to change my opinion on. Because previously, I had the Grant Morrison informed opinion on Talia, and that she's like an R-wordist, and she's like a very morally evil character. When you actually read the books, she's not. The thing about her is that this is what this Brit, this annoyed the crap out of me in the Nolan movies, where they made her a straight up a villain that wanted to kill Bruce, and I'm like, that is in no way Talia.
Right. And why I wanted to give Talia support is because she is the second most popular love interest for Bruce. And she's the one that he actually fell in love with. They were married briefly. They have Damien, and just that sort of they did have a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But just as how DC does Clark and Diana's relationship, trying to strain it and make it toxic, make it seem like if they are together, things are doom and gloom and evil, and pretty much down Diana, of her being a bad influence on Clark, of her taking away his humanity, it to pretty much prop up Lois. So that is what it felt like for King, is propping up Talia to have, to prop up Selina, to have Selina defeat her in a sword fight, to have these weird, offensive and kind of like be disrespectful towards her race and everything like that. And yeah, to change Bruce and Talia's love into her assaulting him to have Damien, that was uncalled for. And Morrison was actually called out, and they apologized for it, but their apology was very long-winded, and it felt like it wasn't really an apology.
Oh, by the way, so it's kind of funny. I just scrolled through Twitter. My good friend V, a stolen heart, who's like a big BatCat fan, she brought up, so here's why Talia beating Selina doesn't work out. Selina Kyle has been trained by some of DC's best fighters like Richard Dragon, Armless Master, and Wildcat. There's no way, while Talia has been trained by the League of Assassins, there's no way Talia beats Catwoman. Game, set, and match, Tommy.
Well, I mean, with swords, though. Swords, Selina hasn't had any training with that, though.
Well, yeah, yeah, but that's the thing. I'm like, it's very strange. But anyway, but yeah, see, the thing is, and this annoyed me. Speaking of Brit, if you thought that DeCamu did off-screen stuff bad with SuperWonder, okay, when the first time we see Talia in the DCAMU, she's bringing Damien to Bruce, and it's all really good, right? Then literally the next time we see her, she is like, okay, I never loved you, Damien. I'm going to go kill your father.
Yeah.
I'm like, where did this come from?
That is pretty much how DC, and like I said, in order to prop Selina as the one and only love interest, Talia has to be 180'd. And yes, she does have loyalty to her father, but at the same time, again, her conflict was more so her love for Bruce, though, and that was something that still she held on to.
And by the way, Cameron, Grant Morrison apparently said he made Talia R-word Bruce because he forgot how their last meeting left off.
That is, I mean, for a writer to
see, Grant, there's a lesson. Even if you forgot how it ended, read it.
Go read it.
Read it.
Right.
Go on DC Universe Online Infinite, whatever it's called. Read it.
I mean, that pretty much makes it a lot worse. Then
I'm like, dude, it's not like it's the Declaration of freaking Independence. You could read this.
so you basically chose the worst outcome, though.
Yeah,
Like,
you know what it is? Lazy.
yeah, but still, the fact that Talia is like, that's all people know of her when she's brought up, especially on Twitter when they don't read. So it's like I said, it's the same thing of when they don't read about Clark and Diana's relationship as what it is, even as platonic best friends, they always bring up injustice or this, they need to be grounded or something like that, and their humanity is in question. So that's the same thing with Talia, is that everyone thinks that she assaulted Bruce to have Damien, and that's not the truth. Or that even with Damien, and Tom King uh, wrote this in the backups for Wonder Woman, of Damien teaching Trinity how to tie her shoe. And he says something about, I think, it, basically he had a tortured kind of like childhood, and Talia being me, or something like that. And it's kind of like, why do you continue on with this when no, Talia loved her son, she loves him, so why would you? And not only that, but it felt like while he was kind of villainizing Talia as this mommy dearest or something for Damien, he wanted Damien to have like this awkward, um, but very respectful uh, stepmother relationship with Selina. And they pretty much bonded, I think, over Damien loving cats as well.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it would be better if you build the relationship with Selina and Damien as her being his stepmother, and they can bond over the fact that Damien loves animals, especially cats, and then but you can still respect his mother.
Oh yeah,
You, you
it's
don't
just
you
thinking of
don't
being
have
parents.
to you don't have to villainize either one of them. Um, and Bruce and Talia, they can. It's going to be a little drama there because they don't know what direction Damien is going to go in. Whether he's going to have the loyalty of joining the League of Assassins, or things like that, and being more with his mother, or he wants to be the next Batman, and being Robin with Bruce.
But here's the thing. Here's what I love about that. She left it up to him. So that's your choice.
Right. So that is something that needs to be explored in a more positive way
Mm-hmm.
than how DC makes it seem like, oh, your mother the villain. And if Damien, because Damien was also characterized as like this insufferable brat, like totally unlikable.
Yeah, that's the way the first couple of issues were. He grew on you, but still, I'm like, ah.
Yeah, and And the reason why he was bratty like that is because of Talia. And it's kind of like, why are you, again, villainizing his mother? Stop that.
Well, that's what DC does, Brit. You should know that by now. So
Yeah.
now we're gonna get to. So the way we normally do these couples comparisons is we do a crossover with SuperWonder. Brit has one, and I made slides for it, but I also have one, Brit,
Okay. Neat.
and I came up with it today. So
Okay.
actually, yesterday more accurately. So here's my story. I don't have a slide for it, so I'm going to describe this. So one day, and we'll have it where like Bruce and Selina are dating or engaged, or they're in a relationship. Let me put it that way. One day, Talia shows up. Turns out she has left the League of Assassins and is looking for sanctuary. So she came to in her words, the safest place on earth, the Batcave. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that works. And it turns out Ra's al Ghul is the main antagonist of the story, and he's trying to get his daughter back because he wants her to essentially, what's the word? He wants her to bear an heir because Damien didn't work out because Damien's with Bruce. So she's like, at that point, I had to get away. So you also have, there's a little bit of tension between Selina and Talia at first. And you can even have Selina do with a little bit of jealousy, and then Batman could go, you know, I'm engaged to you, right? And then he goes, oh yes, with the first diamond I ever stole. So then you have Superman and Wonder Woman essentially help like provide security. Maybe Diana even brings Talia to Themyscira, and then there's a final battle between Ra's and Batman. And I have this perfectly set up. It's like the first cutscene in Gotham Knights the game when Batman is like beaten up and everything like that. And essentially Ra's says, I will burn down this entire planet I will burn down this entire city to get my daughter back. And then Batman goes, you won't have the chance. He raised up his gauntlet, pressed a button, and then essentially Batman goes, and yes, I know V, but it's part of the story. It's a temporary story. But anyway, so Batman raised up his gauntlet, hits a switch, and he goes, you know, Ra's, there's a difference between you and me. You came here alone. I came here with people. And then through the Boom Tube portals that he just opened up is Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, and Catwoman. And they beat the living crap out of Ra's and then get Batman out before the entire cavern collapses. And then you have Bruce essentially tells Selina, hey, listen, it's you. It's always been you. It always will be you. Yes, I have history with Talia, but I've had a very unpredictable life. I work with people that can fly, shoot lasers out of their eyes, and go back in time by running. My life is freaking nuts. But the one point of consistency is how I feel about you. That's not going to change ever. It's always been you. Granted, we've had our moments, but ultimately, we always end up back together. If that's not fate, normally I don't believe in fate, but screw it. I'm Batman. If there's no, if that's not fate, I don't know what is. So eventually the story culminates in them getting married and Batman finally taking that step. And then you can tell, and then Clark comes up to him and says, hey man, I never thought I'd see the day when you would actually tie the knot with Selina. And then Batman makes a snide comment like, well, here's the thing. After I saw you and Diana take 10 years to actually tie the knot, I figured, you know what? I'm not going to wait 10 years. And that's my story. Scene.
Yeah, I love how we are consistent with throwing jabs at Clark and Diana for taking 10 years.
Okay, for those that don't know, we have a story in our stories. Clark and Diana were like best friends for 10 years before they got together. So everyone makes fun of them for doing that because we make it super obvious that they love each other. So that's what that kind of joke is. And we can have like even it's kind of funny. I imagine there's this scene where Batman takes like a couple of guys at the bachelor party are hanging out. There's no strippers. It's like Clark insists because he's a very strong, like he doesn't want the temptation away from Diana. And then to quote actually like the Billy Batson is like, Clark doesn't want them because look who he goes home to every day. And then you would essentially have, it's kind of funny, is Billy Batson goes, I never thought I would see the day when Hal Jordan would get married before Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, that is throwing a lot of jabs.
And then Hal goes, wait, I guess that means I'm more mature than Batman. Wow. And then Batman goes, you know, I have a contingency plan for you, right? And then Batman goes, and then Hal goes, you brought that with you?
Of course, he always brings it. Just
It's a
the
lot of
paranoia.
side comments, but it's really just like it's Batman because the center point of this story is Batman finally like decide we can fix the Tom King story of Batman
Of course.
wondering can I still be an effective Batman and be happy? And this whole story is basically like, you know what? I don't know. I don't care because you know what? Even because whenever I've slacked or fallen apart, I have an entire family of people that have picked up the slack. So if I do become a less effective Batman, they will be more than happy to pick up the slack. And then I would also have a scene where for the honeymoon, Alfred locks the Batcave and like changes all the locks so Batman can't get in. And he goes, instead of going in there, you are going to take that woman on a cruise. You're going to take care of your wife, sir.
I did like the only one part of Tom King is the issue where I don't like it that she stole the dress. It seemed kind of like, okay, you're doing too much of the
It reverses
stereotypical,
characters. What you're saying?
huh?
You're saying it like reverts her character a little bit.
Yeah, it felt like you just like how having her say meow all the time. It was just kind of like, okay, you're going too far.
Or
But
having her kill the Waynes.
yeah, that was too much. But with having her steal the dress, but she comes back home and basically she has that silent moment with Alfred. And it's kind of like those two, they have that sort of
Ooh,
relationship.
Karen. I
Please stop saying stuff,
no,
Brit.
it's not. It's not an idea I have. Cameron had an idea. Ivy and Harley take Selena dress shopping.
You know what? That would have worked so much better.
That so has to happen. And by the way, so it's so good. Go on, Britt.
Um, so yeah, that little moment of Selena and Alfred kind of having this um like I said, silent type interaction, that made it was cute. But
Now
that was
you
the
gave me an
only
idea.
thing. See, I need to stop talking. Um, but pretty much your idea for the couple's story, though, that I would say that we were in sync a
Yeah.
little bit.
By the way, real
But
my
mhm.
favorite Tom King Batman line. I'm gonna say this. This is my favorite part of the run. Batman's in a fight, I think, against Bane, and he goes, you know, every time I put this costume and go out, the criminals always go, this is the end for you, Batman. You're done, Batman. You're gonna die, Batman. And then he goes, and I'm still here.
He had moments,
I'm like,
but
you know what? I'll give you that was pretty badass. But yeah, he had some moments. That's the problem with Tom King's writing. He has great moments interspersed with poopy, with sugar honey iced tea, as we call it. That's kind of
yeah,
what it is. So I'm like, it's at the point where I'm like, when's the good part gonna show up?
exactly.
But so tell me about your crossover story. And by the way, I love this image of Selena from this is from when they did those what's the word those One Bad Day books, which is like a story for each Batman villain, and they
Mhm.
played into like her origin and like she's trying to steal a necklace because it was the necklace that her mother had to sell to buy her and her sister food.
Oh, that is really
So
sweet.
she tried to sell it back, and then I think Batman like got it for her. And then they play off. It's like Batman finds her and like helps her, and then he goes, "Well, I see you today," and she goes, "Only if you're lucky."
Oh, or does he say only if you're lucky or if you
No, she
were a
says
good?
she says only if if you're lucky because Batman's basically like, "I miss you."
Right, but was it another issue where she asked him if he was like being good or something? And then he responds
Only
back
if you're good.
saying,
I think so. That may have been the line, but it's in that book.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
Anyway, so
my story,
here's
it basically, of course, is centered around mostly Clark and Diana's perspective, of course, but it is a gemstone that everyone is fascinated by. It's in the Gotham Museum. And Selena, she goes to steal it because,
Mhm.
hey, it's something that she wants to, of course, use it as a necklace. I didn't even think of that you would use an image for Selena having a necklace, but it's
I
something
didn't.
like that.
You know what's kind of funny? When I picked that image, that was not what I was thinking of, and then I realized that's the story of her stealing a necklace.
So then you have the League of Assassins that are trying to steal it as well for Rush, and it's basically his whole manipulative plan for Batman to be distracted for his plan of world, domination, or and overtaking certain nations and everything like that. And it's a trippy thing that Bruce has to confront his feelings for both women, though. The gemstone creates like this whole um thing where Talia and Selena are kind of fighting against each other, but at the same time, it's them kind of hating Bruce because he's going back and forth with his feelings. So to see Clark and Diana, at first it's also called the Heart of Arrows
Mm-hmm.
because
Ah,
it's so it's kind of like I thought of a Valentine's or yeah, kind of a Valentine story. And pretty much at the end, of course, they find kind of how to undo the spell with the help of Eros himself. Diana calls upon him, and but they have to. Bruce has to go through trials though, and it's not so much of him choosing either one. It's basically just reconciling his feelings for both. It's more so like I because I really didn't want to choose who he would be with within the story. I would say that he's kind of like still that loner.
mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like he's basically acknowledging he loves both of them for but in their own unique way, and he values both relationships. I think that at some point in reality of DC, they need a story like that though to
And
give.
before creepy people say anything, she does not mean Batman, Talia, and Selena in a thruple.
No.
I have to say that because weirdos on Twitter are going to start shipping that. They probably already
No,
do.
they do, but no, I didn't mean that. I just mean that just have respect for the different ships. It doesn't have to be a competition because each relationship, it has its own value, and it can be explored in different ways. It can bring these characters in different directions. So that's basically what this story is. It's just Bruce confronting his feelings. He knows that he loves both of them for different reasons, and as a reader, you have to respect that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So then we get to now, Brit and I have mentioned this issue of Tom King's Wonder Woman. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying this. Okay, here's the problem with this piece of work right here. The flag is never supposed to touch the ground. What's it doing right here, Brit?
So Diana is grieving, which okay, so
Is it touching
the
the ground per se?
it's touching the ground, and what makes it so horrible though is that it's not a personal item of Steve's. Like yes, it
Mm-mm.
was wrapped around his coffin, but it still just doesn't. It's not so personal to him. And if she
Actually,
was,
my friend Nick had a good idea. What they could have done with this is make it so like it's an American flag blanket that like that at one point Steve wrapped around her shoulders, and then it's like so she took the blanket because it reminded her of Steve.
I mean, yeah, that can work too, but he it's still the fact of Tom King having the American uh
Mm-hmm.
flag. And the one thing that I also saw in one of his Instagram comments, someone asked like, why did you have her hugging the flag? Like it wasn't even, again, the whole criticism is that it's not personal to Steve. Like you can have his jacket, his uniform, his anything that's actually personal to him. Even in the movie, how she had to watch or something like that. Why specifically did you have her hugging a US flag? So someone commented saying, asking that question, why does she have um the flag and practically kissing it?
Mm-hmm.
And then someone commented saying that, well, it represents that Diana loves the US because she loves Steve. And it's kind of like, no,
Oh, that's not the way
no.
that works. Oh no.
And again, they make it seem like Diana only cares for man's world, because of Steve. And I'm kind of like, stop doing that. Stop, you know, belittling Clark and Diana for Lois and Steve. Stop doing that. Their love for humanity, their love for or representing, they were American created, sure, but they are not American heroes anymore. They are supposed to be global heroes, regardless. And just making them seem like they are just American is wrong to me. Tom King also had in the Wonder Girls issue, I think that was issue 5. She uh thanks Cassie. She says, "Thank you for teaching me how to be American." And I'm kind of like, no, you're Diana learns about cultures and everything, but to be American, I there's no way to be American to me. Like we said, everyone has their own different ways of being, and you just, you know, blend it all together. But to
And then there's the
say
BS of her going, I can't be without you. And I'm like, lady, you were literally without him since
for
from for 5 years.
5 years of no, first it was 3 decades with
Well, I mean, in this continuity, because I understand that, but it's like, so you were together in Rebirth, you broke up because he was jealous of you saving the world and not spending time with him, like a pretentious little piece of sugar honey iced tea, and then yes, I'm using that term, and then. And then you break up. Then all of a sudden, you're head over heels in love with him.
and the reason why is only because of Tom King wanting to make Trinity a thing. And what's also bad is that he disrespected the Clay origin by making it about Steve. Like it
Yeah.
within for him to say that Hippolyta prayed for it, like Diana wasn't a miracle for Hippolyta, she was a miracle for Steve. And I'm kind of like, no, the the entire, reason for Wonder Woman was not for Steve. So in the background of the Amazons and what they went through, the assault, the torture and everything, what Hippolyta herself went through, and then for her, and especially when you emphasize on Perez, how he showed that they are reincarnated souls. Diana and Hippolyta are a mother and an unborn child who were victims of assault, and they come together, with Hippolyta and Diana. And that motherhood, that um, that mother and daughter bond is so ingrained, the backbone of Wonder Woman's story.
And
And
yes, Cameron, he did. He disrespected motherhood. That's the thing there.
and then you have where Diana herself, we have no indication of her wanting a child. But because of Steve's wish or whatever, you were doing what the man wanted you to do, which Diana is not supposed to do. You are falling into the patriarchal trap, which is kind of crazy because in issue 8, he had Diana in the lasso of lies, this kind of nightmare of her being like a Stepford wife and doing what
Mhm.
Steve says, but yet she turns around and actually do what Steve wants her to do out of nowhere. So she names Trinity Lizzie Elizabeth Marston, which is very forced and on the nose.
It's Steve
Because
Trevor's like grandma's name, if I remember correctly.
and it's kind of like, where did that grandma come from?
Mhm.
like you know it, everything that Tom King has done within this run has always been just butt pulled, basically. And it makes no sense. It's nothing to actually build upon at all. And to have Diana mope around, cry over, mind you, the sovereign and the military, the US military, has killed over hundreds of Amazons by this point.
And she's holding the symbol of that group.
And she's holding the US flag. The US has killed your sisters, and you're holding the flag. And you're mourning. And the thing is, she's also crying over Steve, who indirectly, he didn't do anything about it. He
If
didn't
anything, he contributed. He was there to arrest her in issue 3, or
issue 2.
yeah, 2. If
He even
this run feels endless, Brit.
he even cussed at her, and he said that he basically belittled her and said that, you can't go against the US military. And it's kind of like, oh, so you're both. And
You're
he also,
mansplaining.
yeah. And so you have Steve basically cussing at her, saying that she can't go against the military, and he does nothing though. He is on that side for everything. Even if he is kind of like telling her certain things, it still does not convey them being romantically involved. So then within,
It gets worse, Brit. Isn't it like they meet at a church? First off, they make out in a church, and I'm like, that's stupid. But ignoring that part. So then she warns him, "Don't go to the Sovereign. He's gonna kill you." And she goes, "Nah, it'll be okay, Diana." He goes, he walks in, he goes, "Hey, you want to see me, sir?" Sovereign just shoots him.
that was the
Oh, Barry, I love Barry. Hey, man, a win's a win. She leans on Clark's shoulder over Bruce. That is true.
I mean, that was okay, but
But
at the same
again,
time,
look at Clark. He's like, if anything, Bruce should be the one that's like this, and Clark should be the one that's like there.
right, it's kind of like this is so rushed to make Trinity a thing that
I think I know why. I'm gonna make an assumption here, Britt. Here's why I think this rushed. I think they told him we're canceling the run, so he is rushing to get Trinity in the continuity.
but I mean, it seems like she's gonna be ignored in all of the
No,
books
she
anyway.
is, but he just wants to, because can you imagine if he promised we'd get the daughter of Wonder Woman, but he never got to introduce the daughter of Wonder Woman? So I think what's happening is that it's rushed because if you notice, the issue 17 now is being marketed as the end of the Sovereign run instead of like issue 20, where I think what's happening is that they're shortening the run and then eventually they're going to cancel it or like get a different writer on Wonder Woman because they legally can't cancel Wonder Woman. But what I think is that I think the sales of Absolute Wonder Woman scared them. Because here's the thing. Here's why they put Tom King on Wonder Woman. Because he is, like it or not, arguably for the wrong reasons, he is a high-profile writer. And they thought that, because here's the thing, after the Clunrad run, and by the way, I'm going to say this. Remember in the beginning of the Tom King run when I said, I'm excited for this. It can't be any worse than the Clunrad run. I'm sorry. This is worse. I was wrong. This is way worse. But anyway, Brit, did you agree with me that this is worse than Clunrad?
It is.
Yeah, thank you. So my point is, I think, so they brought Tom King on because they figured, okay, Wonder Woman doesn't sell. If we put Tom King on her, she'll sell. She didn't. If anything, the run has been, the only people really loving this are Tom King fans, not Wonder Woman fans. The Wonder Woman fan base hates this run.
Yeah, because first of all, it's a nothing burger.
Mhm.
It's not what Tom King said about this is that this is about Wonder Woman to show how awesome she is, but she
Really?
has done nothing. She honestly, the pretty much the only thing that she has done is kind of like crash things like the tanks of the military tanks and the Washington Monument.
Oh, she's murdered U.S. soldiers, by the way, because there was blood in that.
Right, but at the same time, I mean, she isn't mourning and grieving over her sisters. She's mourning over a man that, again, no indication of them being romantically involved. If she was, she would have had something a little bit more personal to him to cradle or whatever. And also,
even his uniform, that would have worked.
right. And also, if you wanted to make a daughter of Wonder Woman and wanted to use the clay origin, for the Amazons that have been killed by the U.S. First of all, wait, let me go back because it's a lot of things that Tom King has done wrong. Okay, so first, Emily, the blonde Amazon who murdered the men inside the pool.
Yeah, he said she's returning, and I'm like, she should have been here the entire goddamn run.
But you said that she's pregnant, and
that's true.
So it's kind of like,
watch.
Why?
You know what they'll do? This is how Tom King will set this. This doesn't work. In other words, the clay origin doesn't work, and it doesn't get turned to a baby. And then the Emily story will pop up. This was a red herring.
Well, no, actually, in the next issue, Trinity is born. Like she's
okay.
So it's kind of, but it still doesn't make any sense because so you have an Amazon on the run. Diana has not done anything to find her. If she's pregnant, how far along has she been? Has she had the baby already? Nothing has made sense. Why did you even bring up Emily if she has nothing? She has nothing to do with this storyline.
Yeah, all we know is that at that point when she killed those dudes in the bar, she was pregnant, according to the Sovereign.
And Steel, or whatever his name is.
And Steel.
Sergeant Steel.
Yeah, because he was explaining that too. So as far as we know, so at that point she's pregnant. So she's probably, and she didn't look like she didn't have a lot like a large belly. So even though I'm not a doctor, I would guess that she's like not that far along. And depending on the time period that this run takes place in, I think she's still like relatively not showing.
Which is still going to be stupid because if I would say that he said that it takes a year for this storyline to transpire or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is 52 days or so after absolute power, then yes, she should be either she should have already had the baby or the baby should have been born. Or close to being born or something like that. Also with another thing with Tom King is when Diana's whole like her lack of personality. It's kind of like
I'm sorry. That's it. To say it's based off of Gal Gadot is an insult to Gal Gadot because I'm sorry, she had personality.
And another thing is told with with the Sovereign. It's not Diana. So she's basically a plot device, or in her own book. You don't get her perspective of anything. Um, and for Sovereign to say that Diana was pretty much accepted in the US as well, and as a hero because she betted a soldier. So you're basically still saying that Diana's her reasoning of being a hero and accepted as a hero in the eyes of the people, and also accepted by uh, Superman and Batman, is because she was with Steve. And that again really disrespects her as a character, and what she represents as an independent character as well. Um, and then you also have Trinity. I would say that in order for her to have the impact, she should have been, if you wanted to create her out of grief instead of a mother's true like love, like Hippolyta, she should have been created with the lost souls threads or whatever of the Amazons that uh Sovereign murdered.
Yeah, instead of the dude that arguably facilitated it.
Yeah. You I mean to
Oh,
try to
and her name should not be Trinity.
her name shouldn't even be Elizabeth. I mean, that was so you can tell that Tom King is very much trying to force things that don't really make sense. Um, but to give Trinity a father, that that honestly takes away from Wonder Woman. Like
Mm-hmm.
it if you think that people had issues with Zeus coming about, making Diana have and using the clay origin too. And the only reason why Trinity is formed is because of a man, and because Diana was out of mourning and stuff like that. Then again, the next issue, you have her basically quit being Wonder Woman to be on maternity leave in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of your Amazon sisters still imprisoned or still being murdered. Those that if the Amazons lived in the US or whatever for decades and built a family, we don't see Diana go to them and like console them either. We don't see anything like that. So this whole story really was just to bring up Trinity, and also a self-insertion in a sense for King to be like, or to be Steve, because
In which case,
he
does that mean that he wants to die? Because Steve just died.
I have no idea what. No,
Isn't that kind of weird? I just realized that.
well, I would say that, like I said earlier, I think that Tom King is trying to make this like more so Steve being the hero, because he is influenced by the DCEU in the sense of Diana's whole motivation and her like, no, she didn't make a baby for Steve in the DCEU, but she still like her the way she acted, so standoffish, so antisocial, um not finding love again and stuff like that. And she did act like she can't live on without him, and she didn't care about her sisters and they died on the island as well before she even left within the first movie.
But let's not forget, actually, she showed up and was very happy on the Justice League. So again, that's the thing. It's like you're only going off of Wonder Woman 1984 because she even moved on and was like, now I fight to protect the world in Wonder Woman 1. And then you get to Wonder Woman 1984 and it's the complete opposite. So I'm like, Pat, I wouldn't be surprised if Tom King was involved in the story of Wonder Woman 1984.
Well, he wasn't, but it's the fact that he did watch that movie, and yeah, that's where he took the
I'm
influence
like,
from.
take Zack Snyder's Justice League as the inspiration. That's the good Wonder Woman. But no! Anyway, now let's talk about something a little more positive, Brit. So we got some previews on Absolute Wonder Woman. Again, the more I look at this book, the more I think this is going to be my comfort Wonder Woman book. Because it just looks so good.
It does give the Elseworlds that, you know, what they're trying to have the absolute universe is basically New 52 done right in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was, the thing that I don't agree with though is that they want to do a lot of revisionisms and think that New 52, it was a necessity because post crisis was in the gutter. You know, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
working. And WB pressured them to reboot or they will shut them down. So to say that they should have done this back then, no. There was no way that
They didn't have the
WB,
time.
yeah, they didn't have the time and there was no way they could have done it. If
And
it
they didn't
wasn't
have
for,
time. I love when people say, well, we would have been happy if they had at least wrapped up the post-crisis universe before rebooting. Again, didn't have time to do that.
that, and because of the New 52 and giving them a bigger boost and everything like that, they were able to save DC and the comic industry as a whole. And then they are able to do this new universe, you know, and keep whatever the main line is doing. But you see people more so gravitating to the absolute universe and kind of not caring for the main universe. With, I mean, you have Tom King on the Wonder Woman book doing whatever he's doing with his self insertions or whatever. Um, so that book is pretty much written off. Um, Absolute Wonder Woman is probably going to sell much higher than the regular Wonder Woman book, and you will see that migration um, to the Absolute Wonder Woman.
That's what I
Uh,
think. What I think is going to happen, the reason why I said that book is about to be, Tom King's run's about to end, is because, first off, there's way more. There's excitement for a version of Wonder Woman that is not Wonder Woman. By not Wonder Woman, I mean like very much like she's a witch, she's raised in hell and all that stuff. It's the one that's like practically the opposite of Diana's origin. And comic book fans who normally are against change are for this. That's how bad it is. But when those people start migrating over to Absolute Wonder Woman, it's going to take time. But if Absolute Wonder Woman maintains this number and more of the fans leave, then this will cannibalize the main Wonder Woman book, and then that'll go even lower.
yeah, and I mean, the first issue comes out next week, so we will definitely see the impact of okay how the story is going to go, and it seems like it is getting a lot of rave reviews. Of course, inside reviews and kind of biased to have you pre-order the issue, but it seemed a little bit genuine. And if you think of
I
this as
got
an
2
elsewhere,
copies
oh really?
because I got the main cover and the Jim Lee cover. I got the Jim Lee
Oh,
cover for all 3
oh,
because
wonderful.
it's Jim Lee.
The covers have been very interesting and very unique for the characters. So yeah, with seeing the book next, honestly, that was pretty shady of DC because you have the bad quote, Wonder Woman book come out, you know, a week before, and then you have the most anticipated Wonder Woman book come out afterwards, and you know the fans are going to rave for this book, and drown out Tom King's book.
That's the thing. If this book it's gonna get to the point where where even the Wonder Woman fans won't talk about Tom King's Wonder Woman anymore because they'll be like, "How great would it be, Brit, if the Witch Wonder Woman is the preferred version of Wonder Woman than the main continuity one. This
Right.
has never happened before. That's
Right.
how bad this is for
Right.
Tom King's
And
Wonder Woman.
again, for you to have Diana like drop everything to be a stay-at-home mom while and the thing is Tom King was like he is going to put the Wonder Girl he wasn't going to put the Wonder Girls in the book at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that pretty much pushed him, I think, to put them in the book because he wanted Diana to stop being Wonder Woman and be this mother to Trinity, basically just out of the blue. And Diana, I mean, I just don't know, again, the characterization and um the purpose of this run that he has. But with Absolute Wonder Woman, Kelly Thompson said that, she almost quit the book because she couldn't get the original type original story to work, which was Diana basically being like the goddess of war, and she
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to be kind of like mean and just real, not evil, but she's just more hardcore.
Hardcore. Mm-hmm.
And instead, it's that, yeah, this Diana is a little bit stricter. She is a little mean, but at the same time, she still has that. But I think her meanness and everything goes within when she's fighting the villains or the monsters and stuff. But she's still very compassionate and loving, though, and in her relationship with who raised her as well. Again, you still have that motherly bond somewhere. Even with the Diana raised in hell, she still has a mother. So Tom King, again, to disrespect the Clay origin, to forcing Steve to make him important at the expense of something that was sacred basically to Hippolyta. Again, Hippolyta crafted Diana over being a mother, a reincarnation of a mother who was already pregnant and who lost her baby to assault, violence. And she wanted basically her baby back, and wanted that to fill that void of loneliness that she had. And Diana also represents the triumph of what the Amazons dealt with as well. And she was supposed to be this symbol and champion for the Amazons. So again, to take that away and try to make that into Diana grieving over a man, again, she did not show any type of love for until issue 13, and make that her only emotion when, again, hundreds of her sisters have died within this period as well, and she did not cry over them. She barely even acknowledged this issue. But you make it again about Steve. You're trying to make him more important at the expense of a story that is supposed to be about female empowerment and the female supporting cast that surrounds Diana. Um, we don't have Etta, we don't have Julie and Vanessa. It's just Steve, pretty much.
Exactly. So I'm like, if this is supposed to be a celebration of Wonder Woman's like history, this ain't it. But anyway, so then we also get Superman, and let me tell you this: um, if this thing can move, Laura's freaking hot.
I would say that this definitely is New 52 again, with Laura
Mm-hmm.
being, first of all, she isn't a mute housewife that's hanging over Jarrell's shoulder as she's normally depicted, or weeping, because of course, Krypton is being destroyed and she's seeing her son being rocketed. But she's actually having seeing her with the background makes so much sense.
Hmm.
And I love that within the New 52, how they gave her emphasis and importance for Cal to basically want that for himself of a woman of equality um, with him as well. You
And you
know,
know what's interesting? So I see this panel that says the planet Krypton was ruled by its cities. It looks like now it's just me going off a panel, but it looks like Jason Aaron is basically making Krypton like ancient Greece when it was just individual city states.
that's interesting.
So I'm like, that could actually be really cool. But first off, how gorgeous is this art? That's the one thing I will say. Absolute, the Absolute Universe has fantastic artists so far, like by far.
They have very unique art styles that fit within the versions of the characters.
Hmm.
And yeah, it really, honestly, the artwork is better than mainline. I would say
Hmm.
the only art that is pretty much really stand out, but at the same time, it feels uniform though, is Dan Mora. But he's being extended to everything where it's kind of
And Semper.
becoming oh well, Simper, he I feel like he's trying to convey a little bit of Alex Ross in a
Hmm.
sense. Um, and sometimes his expressions or it lacks a little bit. It kind of feels a little stiff
Hmm.
at certain points. But the colors, however, are always gorgeous. Um, and but yeah, it seems more that it's the colorist for the main verse that stands out more than the line work of the art
Yep.
itself.
Yeah,
And
because look at how like bright and colorful everything is.
with this, it feels so, I wouldn't say realistic, but that's what's coming to mind. But this feels so like expressive, I would say. Um,
Hmm.
like I said, with the main line, with Dan Mora, his art is beautiful, but it just seems kind of repetitive because he is becoming the kind of like the artist of the designs for everything. He's doing covers for everything. He's doing like two or three books, you know, and it just seemed like it's the same art and nothing feels unique with the main line.
Exactly. So on that, so the point that Britt and I are trying to say here with this is that there's great stuff coming from DC. You just have to find it, and sometimes it is a bit of a slog. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, but there's some good stuff.
Basically, yeah.
There's some good stuff. Now, Britt, now we're at the end of this. Kind of want to spend some time and check in with you. So, Britt's been since last week. Brit's been doing a little deep dive into Green Lantern, and I'm interested. I'm sure the audience is interested to see your opinions. By the way, I have 5 ideas.
Wonderful. I I really need to stop talking. Um, so uh I watched the movie. I watched Emerald
Knights.
Emerald Knights, and I started the animated show.
Mhm.
Okay, so first of all, with understanding Hal Jordan's story and how again you see one depiction of the character and it's kind of like that is the only depiction that you think of and you think
Mhm.
that that is who the character is, but once you understand like these different iterations and watch them and also read upon the purpose of the character the in the history, you get a more rounded character and see, oh yeah, this is just one aspect of the character. It's
Mhm.
not just the whole character. And I love that. And I also just love that it, especially Emerald Knights, that
Mhm.
was so good with being an anthology type um movie where I really understand you think Green Lanterns, okay, it's a bunch of people well, life forms in green suits in a sense. But when you are able to have just a 15-minute story, I would say, of these different characters to understand why they are the Green Lanterns and why they come together. That these different life forms have a distinctive story, and they become more of like a huge family. And it's just so like I told you before we started the show, is that you can have many Green Lanterns because they are so distinctive and they have their own story. But you can't really get with having 50 million Supermen in Metropolis because they feel so redundant. Or
And
even,
plus, well, because here's why you came with the Green Lanterns. Green Lantern is a police force.
well, that I they are a police force, if you want to say, but I still just want to say that they're kind of like, I don't really want to say the space cop thing because it feels like even that it's more than that. It feels more.
A
I
little
don't.
bit. But here's the thing, though. And I thought of this before when DC was trying to make all these political statements in 2020. You could have done like a police brutality story using the Green Lanterns, because that's what Sinestro kind of is. Because Sinestro's origin, the reason why he was deposed is because he was using his Green Lantern authority to subjugate his people.
When yes, that was shown of how uh Sinestro kind of used he abused the power for sure
Mhm.
and abused some of the people that he was interrogating. Um and it seemed like they they kind of like gave him a pass for that because he was such it felt like he was such an exceptional type Green Lantern. And
Mhm.
then at the end of the movie, the live action movie, to see that he was so, in a sense, corrupted
Mhm.
and just that um, he wanted people to fear him
Mhm.
now. That's the kind of power that he felt. He wanted people to see him as this powerful being that you should fear. And so with him turning into the Yellow Lantern at with the post credit scene, it's kind of like, okay, I wanted to see a sequel after that.
Yep.
I really did.
I know we all did. By the way, so that movie that is so the Emerald Knight's the first clip that gives the origin of the Green Lanterns. That leaves out something about the origin of the Green Lanterns. All right. And this links to the origin of the Red Lanterns as well. So, do you know what a manhunter is?
Yes. Well,
Yes. What?
oh, continue on.
Okay, yeah. So again, for those that don't know, they're robots. So when the Guardians first came up with the idea to police the universe, they made the Manhunters. They're supposed to be robots because they figured emotionless robots could like cold logic. There'd be no room for ambiguity. So they deployed the Manhunters. The Manhunters murdered everyone in Sector 666. Yes, that's the sector, and including the family of a certain DC character named Atrocitus. And his rage was so fiery that he made a Red Lantern, and thus the birth of the Red Lantern. So the Guardians are directly responsible for the Red Lantern Corps being formed.
Oh, That's interesting.
And then
That's
the Blue Lanterns were formed because because Ganthet, who was the main guardian that that really had the faith in humanity, he felt it was a mistake for the Guardians to purge themselves of all emotion. So he and Sade, another Guardian, teleported to the planet of Odium, I think, with a Blue Lantern and wanted to create one for Hope. That would be less of an offensive ring and more of a ring that can support Green Lantern rings.
well, that's really interesting. That's better than the sorrow, or
Sad Lantern.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
of a broken heart. I mean, that could be interesting, but I mean, you just want like a lot of people to be sad.
Yeah, and I'm like, at least sadness is an emotion, so I'll give them that because they kind of got a little going crazy with this whole emotional spectrum when they said that like death is a lantern core. So death is an emotion now. But anyway, so the thing about this, the thing that I really love about the Green Lanterns, there's a little bit for everyone. Like here's the thing. Now you know who got a great arc in Injustice?
How?
Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
So here's what happened in the comics, for those who don't know. So Sinestro shows up, and for the first thing he does is he kills, he kills Kyle by finding him and then, but like intercepting him, pulling his ring finger off in space. So unlike in Zdarsky's Batman, where Batman's in space for a while, Kyle Rayner dies. So he shows up because he can sense a lot of fear in humanity. So he shows up and they start this battle. Now, here's the thing. He kills John Stewart by stabbing him in the back and then tells Hal that Guy Gardner did it. So Hal goes, rips off Guy Gardner's arm, and then Guy dies. And then his ring is stripped from him by the Guardians. And then Hal gets a Yellow Lantern ring and becomes a Yellow Lantern. This is the way he is until the end of Injustice. So at the end of Injustice 2, the comics, he's being haunted by Guy, rightly so, because he killed him. And he's basically in like a penal colony working off his sentence. And then what happens is the Lanterns are under attack by Starro the Conqueror, and they're being taken over. So they give Sinestro back his ring. And then, because it gets to the point where they need everyone to get their rings back, including Hal. And you find in the Injustice video game, he gets like under the temptation of the Red Lantern ring because he hates himself for what he did. And he's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I do hate myself, but my willpower to overcome this is stronger.
You know, you just made, I forgot really that you was talking about Injustice, and then I was kind of like, this is interesting, and then I had to be reeled back in to say, this is Injustice. I don't like this, but that is what I'm saying, that with certain stories, you have to really pay attention to detail that will make you forget where it's coming from, because Injustice, of course, as a whole series, is very awful. But with that kind of story, now I want to go read it. So thank you, Jared. Another recommendation.
Yeah, Injustice 2. And then obviously with the whole Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz, where they were arguing, and he basically could combine their lanterns. But the other thing is like, the thing about Lanterns is that Lanterns and Batman for some reason get some of the best stories, unless you're Grant Morrison. So another similarity, because Grant Morrison's Green Lantern sucked. That's where he gets the reputation of sleeping around, because he's trying to form Hal into Captain Kirk. Obviously, you hate that. And then when Jeremy Adams comes in, he goes, okay, nope, focusing on Hal being with Carol. By the way, Jeremy Adams, the dude that did the fantastic Dawn DC Green Lantern, he's now writing the Aquaman book.
And you know, with that, I believe that Arthur and Mira switches powers.
Yep,
So,
that could actually be really cool.
you know, like like we were saying with power couples, you know, they have very different type of, even though Arthur and Mira are water based, um that's where their powers come from. It's still a distinct difference. And with them trying to control each other's different powers, that is a fun story. You can't really have that story with giving Lois basically the same exact powers Clark have as Superwoman. You
Mhm.
know, that it seems redundant. And the artwork itself and the way Lois is
How
kind of
about the
designed.
cover of her carrying Clark like he carried her?
Yeah, that type of thing. I mean, honestly, to me, she just kind of looked like gender bent Clark.
Yeah, she
Um,
does.
and she honestly just looks like a Supergirl, just a random new Supergirl. They don't look like what Williamson, tweeted was husband and wife. They don't. Um, eh, and even if Clark and Diana were to switch powers, I mean, Diana with laser vision, heat vision, that would honestly be kind of interesting to see.
Hmm. That would be kind of cool, and like Clark having the power of the gods, that would be really cool. Don't watch. They'll give Steve Trevor powers when they bring him back. Oh no. Um, yes,
Well,
when they did the double take. Go ahead, Britt.
I mean, within the storyline of Trinity, it took her 20 years because she's supposed to be 20 years in the future, 20 years old or 19 in the future.
Hmm.
And it takes her 20, well, that long to go find the Sovereign and for him to tell this long, drawn out, dry story about who her father is. Which, again, it questions Diana because if her love for Steve and, creating this uh, baby, naming her after uh, his his grandmother, why did she hide who her father was? That really does not make sense. And then Trinity herself has like resentment for Steve as well. But then I think that it's implied that Diana becomes kind of like this sad shell of herself, like mommy dearest or something. So I don't
Oh
know if Tom
no.
King is gonna kind of like make her mean towards
I think he's
Trinity.
bringing back the. Remember what we complained about in Justice League Rebirth, where Diana
We complain.
abandoning Hunter?
Oh Jesus.
You know exactly where I was going with that.
So yeah, that is awful. I no
I'm telling
way.
you, what if Tom King brings that in?
That is just, I mean, for her to have to go finding the villain to, again, tell this long drawn out story to reveal her father. And then the way Tom King made it seem like this is going to be this big grand reveal of someone, and it's just Steve. Like,
Exactly.
okay,
Oh, you're gonna find out who her father is. It's just the blonde dude I just shot in the face.
yeah, that's it. And again, for you to, and his whole thing also was thinking that he did something so spectacular with the Clay origin, but again, you tainted it with making it about Steve when it is something that is unique to Diana and the backstory of the purpose of it.
Exactly. So I think that's a good place to leave it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. But okay, I need to ask this, Cameron. But why do you think civilian partners like MJ, Iris, Linda, and more can work, but Lois just can't? Probably, if I had to say this, I think it's because those characters are written in a way that they can stand on their own. But Lois is wholly dependent on Superman. Like they linked her so like indelibly with Superman that she can't like be a character outside of her own. Where you have MJ's a character on her own, Iris, Linda, all of them are. What do you think, Britt?
Exactly. I mean, with Lois, she has to be the love interest. Like with all the other women, they can um be just friends, or they can be the love interest, but they have their own different story. Or even with MJ, she is, even though it seemed ill conceived in a way, but she was still able to become her own like hero instead of just becoming Spider Woman or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Iris, I mean, we saw on the CW how Candace, she kind of made Iris her own character.
Mm-hmm.
And
Even though
Linda,
that's very, but even though, by the way, I just want to be clear on something. Here's the creepy thing about the CW: they made it where
well,
they're
yeah,
practically brother and sister.
yeah, that is very weird. But just the idea, though, that she is a standout character, though. And then
Mm-hmm.
Linda, I think the way Linda is, I haven't read much about Wally and Linda's relationship, but it seems that she's just kind of she's what kind of she's supportive of whatever Wally does. With Lois, it just seems like she's, and that's who she is, you know. And they think that some people think that her selfishness and her being and conceited and being manipulative is female empowerment. And the way that DC props her up again to as like the end all be all, better than any other female character, especially with Wonder Woman. It feels like Diana is always set as kind of like a stepping stone for Lois
Mm-hmm.
to make it seem like she's better. And then again, you have these storylines where it's glossed over. You know, Lois is only a um, Pulitzer winner because she is married to Superman. She did her story on Superman, but it it was addressed as if she wasn't in the conflict of interest as well, that they glossed over that to say that, oh well, we just fell in love and that's okay. But the intern that Lois was propping up within that story, she was far more honorable because she's like, Superman saved me and I feel biased towards this story. And in journalism and everything like that, it's supposed to be more objective
Mm-hmm.
and unbiased, but
Supposed to be.
supposed to. But Lois has made her career out of being the wife of Superman. And even the fans, you know, they can try to prop her up and push this female empowerment, but Lois is always going to be with them, is just her place is as the love interest. And if she isn't the love interest, then they'll um, spew out words like sexism and misogyny, or that you're disrespecting her character and everything like that. How is it disrespecting her character when we want her to be more than a love interest?
Yeah, and Diana is love interest because in the new 52, they made it so she could stand up on her own. She had her own adventures, and then occasionally Clark would show up in her book, or he would show up in her book, and that's all it really would be. And then obviously you have the Superman Wonder Woman book where they would be dating, and that would focus on the relationship. But it's not like she gets turned into like Clark's girlfriend, which is funny coming from the crowd that holds up a series called Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane.
Right. And then the fact that you made her EIC of the Daily Planet and haven't done much of anything with it, and then you give her superpowers. And not only that, but she took them, or, well, because of absolute power, they were taken from someone and contrivantly given to her.
Watch, it'll be Kara.
If it is Kara,
Because
seriously,
because here's the thing, it would have to be a Kryptonian because she gets Kryptonian powers.
Yeah, but I mean, to take away the other female uh character's power, that is just that is too much. Like, take away John's power or something like that, but Kara, leave her out of it.
Watch they do take John's power. Barry Allen says, I think Lois can and largely does work. The problem is Diana's right there and works way better. Well, that's the thing. In the new 52, they did Lois moderately well, even though she didn't have a book. But the thing is like, they did it well, but again, because she wasn't with Superman. Because according to her fans, here's the thing: Wonder Woman has fans outside of her love interests. Lois Lane's fans only care about her dating Clark Kent.
Exactly. That's
That's
pretty much
it.
it.
That is the gist of Superman, of like Superman and Wonder Woman fandom. They only care about Lois if she's dating Superman. Where with Wonder Woman fans, they like Diana, and they like her with all these different love interests. We can disagree with who Diana belongs with, but we can agree that Diana is a fantastic character outside of her love interest. Lois, you don't have that.
Exactly. I mean, even Rucka, he was praised as this fan favorite writer, but even
Heh.
his book, it became a question book halfway through. You know, it seemed like he was way more interested in writing the question than Lois.
It's like Tom King only being interested in writing about Steve Trevor, but there's no way that would ever happen. Anyway, yeah, exactly. Lois works well as his friend, and they kind of did that in like Earth One, or even in Grant Morrison's comic run. And you know what? There you go. You had a way to have Lois work without him, without that. But were they satisfied? No, they really weren't. But anyway, I think that's a good place to leave it. So, Britt, why don't you tease us on some of the stories that we have? By the way, drop below your favorite Superman and Wonder Woman crossover couples that you would like to see us do in the future, and then maybe we'll do them. And in terms of next week's episode, let me see here.
We will be talking about horror films.
Yeah, because it's gonna be it's gonna be around Halloween. We're gonna be talking about our favorite horror films and then putting Superman and Wonder Woman in them.
Yeah, which is gonna be very fun.
Yes, it is very much so. So, Britt, to tease us on some stories you got going.
Okay, so with story one of Shelterverse, we have chapter three, which is I'll say a quarter um done. It's really a after the kind of like emotional part of chapter two, you get like a little bit lighter within it. And then we go a little bit dark for the
Mhm.
next couple of chapters. And yeah, I love story one. I love story two. Story three has that was my number one for sure. And it's tied. But that our new story with, you know, with the character that we've created, and honestly, again, it is pretty much a rewrite now. Um, that is my favorite because taking we are truly um, trying to challenge Clark and Diana's relationship and putting them through the ringer before they can actually, solidify once again why they are inevitable. And especially when this story is also family oriented and kind of like what families go through in a sense. Of course, Clark and Diana's um, drama and everything is going to be over the top and on a much grander scale, but it still resonates. And then I have a lot of one shots that I'm completing, and Austria is getting another story. Um, and yeah, I'm looking forward to sending Jared more cat gifs on the ideas that he
Oh, I'm
has.
getting some.
And as far as the SuperWonder Instagram, of course, it's spooky month, so we or ironically hit 66,600.
Which is Lois Lane's number. What? She's the devil. I'm just stating the facts.
So honestly, I would like, to push it to the 700s now, then stay at the 666. But it still says a lot, though, that for us to continue on gaining the followers, and a lot of although it is some negativity and toxic comments within Twitter, of course, because Twitter is a cesspool. But at the same time, Twitter is also it's an echo chamber sometimes, and it's not the full picture.
Mm-hmm.
So to see that we still have a lot of support on different platforms, it says a lot more than just Twitter. So I do appreciate that.
And to echo what Brit said, this channel hit its 4-year anniversary this week. And again, I said this on CLD, but I really want to reiterate it here, is that this channel was supercharged by the SuperWonder fandom and the fact that this show like exploded the way it did. Because again, when we started this, it was like, okay, so this will start and then maybe it'll go on for like a couple episodes and then we'll see what we can do. But it like blew up like with the force of like 1,000 suns practically. So in terms of that, I really want to thank you. And I really want to thank you, Brit, for going on this journey with me.
Yes, I don't do that. Yeah, you're snickering because I appreciate, the invitation to, join you on this journey because it has been very fun. And I've learned, so much more about these characters with the research that we do every week. And just the fun that we have to create this verse. The shelter verse is just so much fun. And to have a year of, like we said before the show started, we started this story first as a one shot. And then it was kind of like, okay, wait, let's add on to it. And then after that, we was like, okay, we had pretty much the conclusion of story one and then story two. And then it's like, oh, okay, let's extend it to 3 stories. And then we have 4 stories now. And after that, we just have plenty more other stories. I mean, I don't know, 15, 20 stories now, Jared?
So many. We have a bigger multiverse than DC does practically.
Yeah, and again, I can't wait to share my top story. I love that story so much because it's like I said, it challenges Clark and Diana's relationship in a way that it's not it's kind of soap opera, but at the same time, it's like I said, it's very family oriented and it resonates with loss and a challenging love and everything like that. And just giving them something that you wouldn't see in comics, or it would be something in the Elseworld that honestly a writer has to really be invested in and be a little bit sensitive with as well. But it's still a fun story, and of course it's going to be happy, but just the idea of it though is just so, it makes me emotional, and of course with a whole bunch of cat gifs.
Oh, I got some cat gifts in this right now.
Oh my goodness. I know.
All right. Stay at work, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod. Zois and Max are bad for life. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.